You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, LuchaCentral.com presents Masks, Mats, and Mayhem.
I'll write it and we'll do it live. Fucking thing sucks.
Welcome to another edition of Masks, Mats, and Mayhem. I am your host, Justin Outlaw Harvey. You find me on social media at JustinHarvey75. You can find the entire show on social media at MMM Show 75. And that over there is at Byron Fever.
Catch it. Hi. There, it's easy.
Did we do it all right that time?
Sort of, but now what I figured out is if I want to point to you, I need to use this hand,
point the opposite
not
direction.
this one. Because now I'm in the
I did the wrong hand because then I did this thing. I did the little whatever. Byron, guess what? Remember last week?
Boring week.
You remember? Yeah, it's a really, really boring week in wrestling. You remember last week? We did this show, and I was talking about like Max DuPri and like how he was making this gimmick work and like how he was just awesome. And
that's true. We also were talking about how there was a huge liability that was sinking WWE stock. That was becoming like a big problem.
Yeah, we also were talking about how like Jordan Grace had pissed people off, but at least her man was still a champion and he had friends.
A job.
And a job. You know. Hey, but you know what? Brock Lesnar still showed up.
He showed up twice.
Yeah, what the okay, guys. I guess there's a few things to unpack this week. So I guess we'll unpack them. Did you run the right banner? You didn't run the right banner.
Oh,
check out this banner. How about this one?
Oh, shoot.
Not that one. This one.
Shoot. Wait, our colors are all messed up. Why are they red instead of gray?
I changed it. You want me to put it back?
Well, I mean, if this is what you want, then I guess you're gonna.
I don't know. Can I put it back still? Here, I'll put it back.
No. This is the new outlaw regime.
You ready? There you go.
It's just red on red. How do you see it? It's like
I know. I made it gray. I made it all sorts of shades of gray over there, Robert Smith.
Sometimes
with your oversized T-shirt.
Well, what are you gonna do?
My T-shirt's looking. That's a medium. I'm looking swole. What's up?
Look at this. Can you compare to this?
I'm jacked.
I technically have a bicep again on this arm.
I technically have pythons. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway,
last guy called his arm pythons.
Yeah. Well, he should look inward.
You will not let that go.
That joke is great. Are you kidding me? Let me see if I can get this up. So look, I finally got this thing framed. I don't know if you can see it. That's that Thunder Rosa comic book that Mel signed for me there. And also, we have to say, happy birthday.
Happy birthday,
that's
Thunder.
my champ. So that's my champ at Thunder Rosa 22. It's a couple days afterwards. And but we still want to wish her a happy birthday. She still has the belt. She's still a champion. If she didn't have the belt, we wouldn't wish her a happy birthday.
I still would. I'm not.
Isn't that how it works? Like if the second you lose the belt, like all of your friends disappear and you're nobody?
I think with wrestling, it's the second you can stop getting your friends booked, they stop calling you.
Is that what it is?
I think so. No, I'm not.
You can't get your friends booked, and you have to write a book.
There's a lot. Yeah.
Do you get a memoir from one run as a champion? Well, she got an MWA and an AEW, so she can officially write a book now, right?
Yeah, she can absolutely. She's the first Mexican NWA champ. She has to be the first Mexican AEW champ because everyone's the first.
I feel like she could write a book just from the stuff she said on this show alone. Like, especially when we did that 2-part interview with her right when she became NWA champ.
I mean, it's her
or like a little bit into that run. Like, I think that story alone that she was talking about the whole MMA thing and even how she got the name Thunder Rosa, which she talked about the first time she's on, like all that stuff. I honestly think she should write a book. It would be kind of fun. I guess also we should say happy birthday to the person whose birthday has not passed yet, which is me and you. I mean, our birthday isn't until March. Yeah. No, we'll give a birthday shout out to our homie, the Lucha Gringo, Professor Casey. I would tell you his but his account is private now anyway. So if you're one of the 1,500 people that follow him already, I guess you get to send him a message. If you're not, I guess suck it.
No, you can still add him. You can't see his tweets. You can still at Lucha Gringo and tell Casey that he smells bad.
Oh yeah. No if you aren't currently following him and approved already, please do add him because that will annoy the shit out of him. At Lucha Gringo. Yeah. Wish him a happy birthday. Tell him Byron and Justin said the fricker.
Yep. And then also just like tweet him your thoughts on things. He likes to hear that. Do you have opinions?
Yeah.
Let him know.
Yeah, really.
We got Casey a really cool birthday present, but we're not going to spoil it because we know he's actually watching right now. And then he'll text me if we say anything about him that he doesn't like.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Max DuPri just to get us started. Because it's the shorter of the stories out there. So after all the wonderful things I said, like, and again, I said, I don't really know the guy. Like, and it's funny because, you know, as I'm kind of getting information about what happened with him at WWE, basically he had this Maximum Male Models gimmick going, if you haven't been watching SmackDown. And he was actually turning it into something. It wasn't a great gimmick. I don't think anybody was like, oh, this is the role of a lifetime that we see Eli Drake in now all of a sudden. But it was kind of universally, a lot of people were saying, holy shit, Eli Drake is making something out of this Max DuPri gimmick. Like, it's actually kind of entertaining and fun. And maybe it can go somewhere. Maybe he's actually got this, heel comedy thing down. And he is a great heel. Like, the guy, is pretty decent in the ring. Like, he's not, Mr. Flippy shit high flyer, and he's not some huge bruiser brawler guy, but he's always held his own in the ring. I've never watched one of his matches and been like, oh God, that was terrible. Most of his matches, you're into it because he's selling a storyline. He knows how to work the in-ring psychology. He knows how to work the stick, whatever. He's a great, solid guy. But at the same time, like, nobody really knows him. And so as this story is coming out, everyone is kind of finding out the same things that we've found out over the years, talking to people who know him, have been in the same place with him as well. But I have never talked to anyone who said they're a friend of Eli Drake's. I really haven't. Though I've talked to a million people that have been a million places with him, hung out with him on a regular basis. But everyone says kind of the same thing. The guy just kind of keeps to himself. He doesn't really say or do a whole lot. He's like that backstage. Even Conan has said that, like, he didn't know how to take the guy at first because there just wasn't anything there. And he thought the guy didn't like him. So he kind of didn't like him at first. But then once he actually worked an angle with him, and he was like, oh, this dude's totally into his shit. And he's a great talker. Like, and then they got along because they had a reason to work together. But other than that, the guy just does his own shit. But also, he is a guy that when it comes to his work, he just tells it like it is. Like, he didn't want a job to Tessa Blanchard at one point in time. He made that known over at Impact, and they were not happy about it because they couldn't find people to really do it. And he was like, yeah, but this isn't Jeff Jarrett in China. Like, this doesn't work, guys. Like, this hasn't been built up the right way. I'm jobbing to people from basically a different division now. Like, this... that
was his point too. Was like, because he also, I mean, he's not the tallest guy in the room, but he's still a body guy in wrestling, and he's still like, he's old fashioned in wrestling and in like how jacked he is, and like,
he's very much an old heel kind of persona and character.
Yeah.
And like, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that he was necessarily right or wrong, because the whole point was, let's make Tessa Blanchard look like she's just a credible part of the heavyweight division, period, regardless of gender. And I don't necessarily mind that new school thinking, but I wouldn't also book that and not think that wrestlers would have an issue with it. Like, I wouldn't kid myself. Like, if Eli Drake or any of those guys got mad about it, you know, like, I don't know, what's EY going to say? A guy like that, if he has to job to Tessa, like, maybe EY does it because EY's just a team player, but at the same time, maybe he grumbles. But apparently the way that Max DuPri, Eli Drake, LA Knight, whatever you want to call him, Max DuPri, apparently he rubs people the wrong way when he's kind of shooting straight. And that was basically the start of this issue. There's some rumors that maybe he had some heat with Mansoor or something too, or that he just told Mansoor something and it didn't come off right. I have a feeling that he's just really kind of a matter-of-fact, straightforward guy. And that may not always... Yeah, but that may, you know, people take that sometimes to be arrogance or whatever. But the real issue at WWE is, for weeks now, they've been coming to him with these Max DuPri skits and bits, creative has, and he's been changing them. He's been working with them, but also telling them, like, hey, what if I do it like this? And what if this? And blah, blah, blah. And guess what? He's been right, because the angle is terrible and he's been getting it over. So it got to a point where, with the Maximum Male Models thing and maybe whatever was going on with Maxine, that he bitched to the creative guys and they ran it up the flagpole to Vince. So Eli talks to Vince, and apparently he shot it straight with Vince too. And Vince pulled him from the angle. And it was kind of last minute. They still went ahead with debuting the Maxine DuPri thing. And apparently they were originally both supposed to be a part of it. She wasn't called up to replace him initially. I don't think that there was going to just be a bigger stable and maybe increasing it a little bit more.
Vince has a thing for sister angles, you know?
Right. But so apparently some of the parts of the creative that Max had said to the other guys were parts that Vince was particularly fond of. And as we know from Vince's recent issues, Vince was more and more and more controlling the book every day. The Max DuPri angle was a Vince angle. And thusly, when Vince comes up with a he's gonna puke kind of moment, he wants the guy to fucking puke. If that's the part that Vince writes, that's the part that Vince writes. And none of the guys on creative, are probably looking at Max like, all right, well, you can say that all day long, but that you're not giving me notes on the part that I wrote, buddy. You're giving me notes on the part that Vince wrote. So go see the big man.
Yeah.
And here's the funny thing. Of everyone I've talked to and every report that I've read and all the news that's out there, no one has said what Vince's temperament was about that meeting. Only that he said, all right, well, let's pull Max from the gimmick for this week, for right now. Then, of course, Vince, you're fired himself, or whatever he decided to do, which we'll get into in a minute. And then this whole Max thing is kind of in limbo at the same time, which is crazy. Oh yeah, Goatsy, we're going to get into this one shortly. Is Vince really gone? Isn't he still a major shareholder? We're going to talk about that in a second. We're going to give you all the insight on what Vince really is and what he really isn't. But so Max DuPri is kind of a little bit in this limbo. Then Vince is gone. And then there's talk about taking him off the blue brand entirely by whoever is left in charge. And then there's talk that, well, Max DuPri will be fine because Triple H is in charge now, and Triple H liked him at NXT. Well, yeah, one of Triple H's last gimmicks was, the Max DuPri in the $1 Million Man angle. And, I don't know if Triple H came up with it or not, but he liked it and signed off on it. And he's part of why Max DuPri, or LA Knight at the time, got called up to be Max DuPri. So certainly there's that argument to be made. But also, if a bunch of other people who are creatives that Triple H also likes and respects have an issue with Max DuPri, it doesn't automatically mean that he's safe all of a sudden. If Shane Helms is backstage and Triple H has known him for 12 years and he's an agent that doesn't like Max DuPri. And I'm not saying it's Shane. I don't know who's agenting the Max DuPri thing, though I should probably find that out. I can probably find that out. But like if some other producers that Triple H highly respects are also like, yeah, Vince was right to can that guy. Let's take him off the brand or put him back on NXT or do something else with him. Triple H is also going to listen to that. So it doesn't mean that there's some automatic redemption of Max DuPri just because Vince is gone. Like a lot of people are speculating. It does mean, however, that there are potentially some options for him. But I'll tell you this. Here's the deal with Triple H. Triple H is already being heralded as, he brought numbers up for Raw in his first week back and this, that, and the other thing. Triple H didn't write none of that shit. That's still shit from last week, y'all. Triple H ain't got time for that shit yet.
Yeah, this Monday was the last Vince written Raw. So it's still Vince.
And there's still a whole creative team there, and Triple H has got bigger fish to fry right this second. Like, he's not going to go on some great, huge hiring spree, and we'll talk about some of that in a minute. He's not going to overhaul creative in a second, but here's the deal. Here's what Triple H did. Triple H went over to Vince's empty chair, picked up the book, put the book down that said Raw, put the book down that said SmackDown, but picked up the book that said SummerSlam. Triple H is rebooking SummerSlam the way that he wants it. He's writing the finishes. They're changing the matches. Triple H is doing SummerSlam. It will be interesting to see what that means because none of us know what the fuck Vince was going to do with SummerSlam. So it's not like we're going to know what the changes were. I mean, I'm sure there are a few people in the creative department that were in on some things and some talent that may have known a direction for their character or maybe one of the finishes. Some of Roman Reigns' talking points this week when he went around on shows to promote SummerSlam, I found a bit interesting and talking about how he was doing it all kayfabe, but really saying he never wants to wrestle Brock Lesnar again. I don't know if he's got heat with Brock for real or whatever. And I can see like wrestling Brock is probably not fun. Like he's a big, strong, crazy dude. What's this? Paul Cross says that Vince forfeited 38,000 something shares. Right, but he's still a majority shareholder. I think that still leaves him a majority share.
There's something where he has a certain amount of shares, but then also his voting power is a different percentage and much higher percentage.
But he also relinquished some of the board voting power, and we'll get into that.
Oh, he's off the board.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But so his voting shares don't even matter. He just gets to benefit still financially, which at the end of the day is probably what's driving all of these decisions. We'll talk about that in a minute. Anyway, I find it interesting that that Triple H has decided that that's where he's really going to jump in. Nobody knows what he's going to do with NXT 2.0 or this, that, and the other thing. Triple H is officially the EVP of talent, but that position has been made to oversee creative. So he is the top head booker with still many people underneath him that have pieces of the book, and he will probably let them do kind of what the current trajectory is for a lot of things. I don't think he's going to really jump in and go hog wild over the whole thing.
Well, you look at WCW in its last 5 or so years, whatever it was, they would have something like this pretty routinely. It's like Bischoff in charge, Bischoff out, then Bischoff and Russo in charge, then Bischoff and Russo out, and this and that. And every time something would happen, they would go on TV and say, we have a new guy with the book. We're starting over. And like at one point they literally had the whole roster out. Everything is starting over because we're going to start doing the stuff that you like now. And they didn't, but also just like the hard stop and then restart. It's just too jarring with such a thing. You know, it's like the WWE machine. It's got to be a gradual thing. And like, really, like what needs to change on it? Well, keep doing the stories you're doing. It wasn't that bad coming out of WrestleMania, but like, don't fuck them up.
Here's some of the deciding factors. So let's talk a little bit about Vince McMahon giving himself the you're fired,
Mm-hmm.
whatever thing. So Vince McMahon steps down, and there's been speculation for weeks that like, oh, with Vince, with his ego, he'll never step down. And I believe that was his gut, in fact, was to, never relinquish control and to keep trying to needle and find little ways. But here's what was going on. The Q2 reports were going to come out. The numbers were good. Very, very good. And for any corporation, those numbers were the key to rebounding the stock price from the hit it took from the scandal in the first place, which we know Vince has a shit ton of shares. And like Paulie is saying over here that, you know, he still owns like 70,000 shares almost. Mm-hmm. So one of the few things that can convince Vince in the world is like, look, this is going to be a long drawn out thing. There's no telling where it's going to end up at the end of this. But the one thing you can do is if Vince is aside from, I won't say removed, but aside from what is seen as the business of WWE, you drop a massive quarterly report that shows everything is up pretty much across the board in a right way. And the stock can rebound and Vince can potentially let the Nick Khan plan that him and Nick Khan put into motion 3 years ago and continue to a successful conclusion instead of whoever or whatever is trying to sully that and drop the price of WWE to purchase it. Like Nick Khan, for whatever you want to say about him or for whatever you think about who got fired or the current direction of WWE, before Vince really jumped in and took full control of the book a few weeks back, where I think is where things really started to get wonky, things were going swimmingly right after WrestleMania. Like people were literally watching Seth and Cody do the same thing pay-per-view after pay-per-view, and they were fine with it. It was fine. Yeah. Numbers were good. Merch was selling. The company was getting more ad revenue. Everything was fine until the Vince scandal hit. So Khan is now in a position from doing this to make that part of it right. And this is why him and Stephanie are co-CEOs. Vince had to leave behind Stephanie or McMahon. It's part of the image of the company. She's now the chairwoman of the board, which is also probably a smart move. So it feels like the reins of power haven't shifted too much. And Stephanie was good at some of that top level stuff. Where Stephanie was not good was at doing Nick Khan's job, doing the professional businessy stuff that will increase the price to get the kind of major boardroom deals that WWE needs. That was not Stephanie's forte. Stephanie grew up around the business. She saw how her dad ran the company. She saw what it was to have a good wrestling company, but she didn't necessarily see what it was like to have a corporation that was excelling and exceeding expectations. So now what you have is they're both co-CEOs at the tippy top of WWE, with her being the chairperson on the board, which is awesome. I think that is a decent solution. You bring Triple H in. He's now like, look, what you did with NXT was working to a certain extent and at least enough that people will believe in your leadership. The reason why Triple H was removed, and we discussed this last week, from NXT was really more the price tag than what Triple H was doing. No one was saying that the content that Triple H was creating was bad, but Vince wanted a farm league. Vince wanted a farm league to feed into the bigger thing. They weren't doing great up against AEW, and they weren't a big enough star power on NXT to kick AEW's ass. AEW stars were bigger than the NXT stars, and that's just that. So the decision was made that like this cool, like super indie kind of feel that Triple H had going at NXT wasn't cost effective enough. They were going to clear out a lot of the middle of the roster, which was all the guys that we liked because they were just still coming up from when we saw them on Lucha Underground or, Circus or wherever we saw them. All these great guys who were coming up and out of MLW and other places, they were still just getting into the mid card. And that was the expense that got cut across the entire company. And a lot of that was gutting NXT and just going back to basically making it televised OVW. Vince was fine with that. Triple H didn't want no part of that. The decision was made. H, step out of this for a while. And then he had some health concerns and stuff anyway. So it actually ended up being good timing. And I don't think he was mad about it. I don't think there was any hard feelings about it. It's not like they weren't going to find a place for Triple H when he was ready. That was always the case. It just wasn't going to be his own little thing over there because it didn't make business sense anymore. And honestly, Nick Khan was right. I don't think it's a better show by any stretch of the imagination, but the numbers that they're getting and the fan base that they have is commiserate with the amount of money that it's going to bring in, and it's also bolstering up the company the way that they want. So sadly, NXT suffering that way saved money and didn't make a hell of a lot of difference on the bottom line.
Well, I mean, what NXT did was it created a product and a spot in the marketplace that AEW became. So, like, if you miss NXT, watch AEW. That's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
You
know? And again, Vince never cared. NXT to him wasn't even in the WWE universe. It was still a feeder program for him. He was fine with the guys it was feeding. Nick Khan was the one that pointed out that was like, hey, these guys that are feeding, if you look at this as a whole number here, do we need that? Can we get by with just these top stars, maybe a couple of up-and-coming guys here that are on cheaper contracts? Because some of these guys weren't on the regular WWE Performance Center, eval contracts that a lot of these guys are. Like a Damian Priest was. A Karrion Kross was not. A Keith Lee was not.
They bring in
Malachi Black was not. These guys were getting paid basically like top indie stars in WWE. They weren't making the millions in WWE yet, but you got, 17 guys that are in the mid-level making, a few $100,000 a year, more than your little up-and-coming guys at NXT. Yeah. That's a big clear out. They probably cleared, a good 10, 12 million off the books real quick.
Yeah. I mean, there was a period where they signed, you have Shinsuke, you have Finn Balor, you have Joe. And it's like when Shinsuke was signed, it was kind of a thing where it got reported he's making like a top of the card main show paycheck already. And like Joe got signed and he got to own his name and his merch.
Yep.
And it's like, these are unheard of. Like it's a lot. I get it. For that show, it's a lot of investment into that talent versus what you get out of them. They could have done more with NXT and, gotten more out of it, like AEW is getting out of that type of product. But, I mean, they didn't need to do it.
Tony's going to have to make some of these decisions at some point, too. He's got all these guys on these 3 and 4 year contracts. We're going to start seeing more of them come up. Some of them have already been renewed. He's going to have some hard choices to make. And now WWE may be calling to get some of those people back, because the downside of the Nick Khan plan is that you do get to a moment like this where you've got a bunch of part-time guys that are big stars and they draw when they're around, but they can't be around 24/7. Or if they are, you got to pay them huge extra appearance fees. It's in their contracts. Like, you want Brock to do 29 appearances this year, you can have him, but there's only 14 on his contract, so you're cheddering up. And they did that one year. There was that 1 year where Brock was basically scheduled, I think, for maybe 20 appearances max, and then they ended up using him for like 38 or something. And they paid him like almost $1 million for some of those. Like, they paid him out the ass.
Well, yeah, it's like at least 6 figures for some pay-per-views, right?
Yeah.
Beyond his contract?
Beyond his contract. So anyway, that's just kind of what they're looking at. So it will be interesting to see how they do it without Vince, because before you had this whole controlling thing, this whole controlling factor, and Vince's ego was still driving it, but Vince's ego was telling him, I can't get my dick kicked in on the sale price of WWE. My ego's not going to allow that. So I'm going to let my ego go on booking and some other shit to basically let Nick Khan tell me as the boss some of the direction of this company that will actually get us a good sale. And he was absolutely right to do that if that was the goal that he wanted, because Nick was doing that until Vince himself fucked it up by all of his scandal shit coming out and then driving down the stock price with his antics of going out and big man walking, falling off the stairs and trying to act like, together forever, whatever. We are family, sister, sledge.
To be fair though, over the course of events in the wrestling industry, what aside from the past 2 weeks, what can you point to that would show the probability that Vince would actually have to answer to any of the trouble he's ever gotten into?
Nothing. And most of these guys don't. But that's kind of what I want to get into, because a lot of people are looking at this as a little bit of vindication or a sign of guilt, or no. Follow the money, everybody. What Vince was purely doing, and what everyone who has been backing Vince, who also owns stock, is doing, is protecting the money. Advertisers were leaving. Networks were angry. He was possibly in violation of his key man clauses that could have gotten entire networks out of billion-dollar deals. It was really the only choice. And possibly it's the only justice that anyone is ever going to get in this entire scenario, is the fact that Vince can't go and play with the boys anymore. That might be it. That might be the extent of the justice. Because when WWE sells, he's still going to make a shit ton of money. Okay? Yep. He still has a certain amount of financial control over the WWE world and in that sale. He may not control the day-to-day issues of the board anymore. He may not control the business. He may not have to get to sit in Titan Tower all day long anymore. But he was trying to get out of that anyway. It's not a big deal for him to give up stuff that he was planning on trying to sell the company to give up anyway. Because at the end of the day, what he's trying to do to fulfill his ego is get the big paycheck. It's all about the
cash,
Goat say. All about the cash, baby.
He knows what's up.
Follow the money.
Goat say, how's your butthole doing? I heard it was not doing good lately.
This is terrible. Terrible what's
happening.
No,
this is great radio. He Gotse got back from vacation Macedonia with his family. It's great. So he kept sending us pictures of all the food he was eating. And then in this past week, he messages me and tells me he has the flu and it's been nonstop coming out of his butt.
Tasty. The butthole is better, according to Gotse.
That's reassuring. Everybody, we can all rest easy now.
Look, justice in a capitalist society when you're a billionaire reads a little bit differently than I think a lot of people want it to. And here's the fact. None of this is about a legal case against Vince.
Yeah.
Please understand that. He's not being investigated by a grand jury for sexual harassment. He's not being investigated for any type of malfeasance legally at this point in time.
He might be with whatever Securities Commission.
With the SEC.
Yeah.
We can get
over bookkeeping.
SEC violations, yes, can be felony offenses, but also they're not prosecuting him for the actual sexual misconduct. They're potential prosecutions available for financial misconduct. And most of the offenses are ones that will just receive a fine that we're talking about here.
And they have to go back and fix the books. And
let's get into some of that stuff. So
yeah,
WWE basically announces that this is another reason why he's got to step down. Again, Nick Khan's plan is to clean up WWE enough that they can get a sale. But because of all this stuff coming out, they have to show where and how Vince moved some of this money around. It is not difficult to change the books to basically say that Vince was given a certain stipend of money, and that is the money that he spent to pay off these women. That is not difficult. He is allowed, as a CEO of a company that big, they are allowed to basically funnel him cash for his own personal uses that he can use as expendable personal cash. They can easily chalk the 14 or whatever $1 million up to that. However, they now have to go back and put that on the books. And what that does is say, okay, it's fine if you're just now putting it on the books. But what you're telling us is that he spent the money on those women. That was his own money, but you didn't report it accurately. So there could be SEC violations in some of the reporting stuff that they've previously reported, especially anything that's more than 5 years old. And we know that some of these situations go back to the mid 2000s. So there could be some issues there. More likely than not, even if it's some of the higher level fines, it'll be a few $1 million to a guy that already spent millions of dollars to shut people up. And the board will probably ask Vince to pay that personally instead of the company. And that will probably be the extent of that. Again, we're talking about capitalist justice in a society with a rich billionaire. Like, billionaire justice is different than the justice that we get. It's not the same. He's got lawyers and legal teams and people on his side. So now let's talk about this. Does the investigation really continue? I know it's done through a third party. I know they've already been paid, and I know that they will have to come to some sort of a conclusion at some point in time, because that will be the only thing that will actually work with the Nick Khan plan. But does it really continue? To what extent? They can no longer take a vote to remove him from the board, which was the entire power that the investigation would give the board. They can look into the financial stuff, but if the third-party investigator finds all sorts of financial wrongdoing, that's just going to hurt all those people that are still on the board. They've won. Vince is out. He doesn't have the same vote anymore. He doesn't have the same power, but he does have the same investment in the company, or most of it. So he's still the largest shareholder. The company wants the stock to rebound for themselves because they all have stock. So why would they continue to try to do something that's going to hurt their own stock? My guess is that they try to downplay it as much as possible. They'll release a little bit of the information, and Wall Street Journal and Bryant Gumbel and these people who have more salacious stories and more information. And yes, there's more people coming forward. I'm not saying that he's not going to be immune to more things happening. I think certainly more things will happen. And I think that there will be some external forces doing it now. But I'm saying the investigation being conducted by the board into improprieties by Vince McMahon that are against board policy for a CEO and chairman of the board are no longer meaningful. This is the entire reason why Vince retired, fired himself, stepped aside. But he steps aside with this giant bag of money. He just doesn't get to control anything about that money anymore, but he still has it.
But you also kind of know he could get on the phone and make a phone call about whatever.
It's not like he put his own daughter in charge of it or anything that owes him her entire livelihood.
Or Triple H.
You know what I'm saying? It's like of course he can call up Steph or Triple H or people that or any number of people at that company,
or
including
even Nick Khan
himself.
He's the one who hired Nick Khan, and they came up with a plan together.
They all owe him a tremendous debt for any millions that they have in their bank account. Given Nick Khan was a very rich guy before this, but he's made more, and Vince helped him make a whole lot more.
Yeah, and not only helped him make, like, when this is all said and done, I mean, who knows how much money Nick Khan is going to make off of the sale?
A lot. But and I think it's going to be the Dana White situation. I think he's basically the Dana White to Vince's being a Fertitta. In that, Nick Khan came in with a small investment in the whole thing, just like Dana White did. Really was one of the people responsible for turning it around and making it something, because even though Vince made the company and did all this, that, and the other thing, and lots of other great people worked on getting into the WWE as far as it got, Nick Khan is going to be the one that gets the big number for the sale. There's just no question about it. There's no one else in a position to do that but Nick Khan. So he's going to do that. He deserves that credit. And just like Dana, when UFC got sold to Patrick Whitesell and Ari Emanuel, They became the new Fertittas. Dana White got his share of the company. He got $400 million given to him, and also his job back and a stake in the new place. Because he was the guy that they were like, dude, you were the one that made this. You know, Lorenzo and his brother, they're great, but we still need you to do this, and we're going to pay you a premium to do it. I think Nick Khan's going to get that. When the company sells, I think Triple H will stick around. I think Jeff Jarrett will stick around. I think maybe a few of Vince's cronies will stick around. But I think once the company sells, Nick Khan will stay on as the CEO of the company, and Stephanie will leave. I think Paul Levesque will still be there, and Stephanie will not at that point in time. And whether or not Triple H's role at that time changes, but that's also Triple H does something Nick can't do. Stephanie does not. The only thing that Stephanie can do that Nick Khan can't do is have her last name.
Yeah.
Which is Levesque. Anyway. Exactly. It's Hearst. She's the Hearst in the Hunter Hearst homes.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, I hope that everyone does find out about all of Vince's dirty secrets. I think that I hope that he's forced to come clean about his actions. I hope that there is at least a public vindication on that level. You're not going to see any punishment from the other things because there were NDAs on most of them. And the simple fact of the matter, guys, is regardless of outside investigations, those NDAs are basically settling before there's even a case. He paid them. They signed the legal documents. That's the same as settling a court case. There just wasn't a court case on the docket to settle. He did it before there was a case. It's the same thing.
It's going to be interesting. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see the culture change because there are a lot of people, even Jericho's out there doing interviews saying something to the effect of, yeah, the stuff that Vince did was bad. And like, if it comes out and it can be proven, you know, that stuff is terrible. However, like, you know, it's not as bad as what could have happened. And also like in this other regard, I owe him my whole career and blah, blah, blah. And you have this thing where like, if you want to be a pro wrestler, if you have had success, if you want to have success, it's because Vince McMahon put you on TV and paid you. That's pretty much it. And there's a few people like Sting, who's one of the best of all time, which he's like the official best favorite wrestler of the show.
There's
a few who managed to
not real fake news.
There's a few who managed to get to the mountaintop without Vince, and then also kind of and manage to stay away from Vince. But if you're making a lot of money in wrestling, you're going through Vince. Vince is going to let you, you know, among everything else. And so there's just this culture, whether it's on purpose or not, everyone looks at him as like a father figure or has some sort of thing where you're basically just trying to be on good terms with him so that if you're like a semi-retired guy, on a whim, Vince could call you and bring you into Raw when they're in your town for the week or something or whatever. Like that's a door you're always keeping open because that puts food on your table or you're thankful. And so
this creates an interesting other problem, which is was the next thing I want to talk about, which is the Vince shaming and the weird feelings that people have now. There are, you know, Vince got applause. Stephanie's little speech at SmackDown got a pop, the thank you Vince thing. And this is where the legacy of Vince McMahon is going to be difficult. I think his reputation is going to be sullied more in the years to come. But I have so many mixed feelings about this kind of stuff. It's like, I certainly don't want to support Kevin Spacey at this point in time. But can I tell you that The Usual Suspects is not one of my favorite movies ever? It is. So how do you reconcile those two things? Can I tell you that I don't want to condone anything that Vince McMahon did, but I'm still a fan of the fact that he was the guy that made wrestling not just be in the territories, that made us all be able to see Andre the Giant and not just some dude in Poughkeepsie.
Yeah.
You know, it's a really hard
WrestleMania.
It's hard. Like, I can tell you all day long, I'm never buying or listening to an R. Kelly record again. And that'd be true. But also, could I say to you that I Believe I Could Fly was not a great song. I can't tell you it's not a great song. The guy was a part of writing and being in a great song.
This is a great thing Paul Cross brought up. I meant to bring it up earlier.
Bring it up.
Kevin Dunn is also out. He's on his way out now.
And should be. Come on.
Oh, well overdue.
I hope a lot of the cronies are gone. Like Johnny Ace, bro, you fed into way too much of it. Sorry, gone. Kevin Dunn, you fed into way too much of Vince's bad stuff. Maybe you were there for a lot of the good stuff too, and maybe you deserve some credit in the history books for the good stuff, though I doubt it. But there's trash. And here's the thing. We may find other names of people that we love and respect or that we think have done great things that are connected to some of the awful backstage misogynistic sexual harassment culture. No more shaky camera.
I'll start watching the show again.
I'll second that. Thank God. Anyway.
Yeah, but like you have all these people who are indebted to Vince who, there's some who are just like they're loyal to the paycheck. And now maybe the paycheck will be on the other side. Now you'll get a payday if you'll say the dirt, if you'll do a shoot on Vince and say a bunch of dirt. Or maybe you're not scared to say some stuff that you saw. Because
here's a hot take. I love this dude's hot take. Read that, Byron, because I don't have my glasses on.
Sadly, what is left is worse than it ever was. The woke wrestling entertainment world is even more gross than what happened in the past.
I don't know if I agree with that. But here's the thing. That comment is from watching trains go by. Here's the thing. I think a lot of people are in fact going to have that opinion that the cancel culture is worse than some of the stuff from the past. I don't think so. Personally, I think Vince sexually harassing women and sending them unsolicited dick pics, especially when they're like third-party contractors and not even really signing up to be in this carny fuck show that people call wrestling. Like that's, to me, that's unconscionable. Like, look, there are some people who went along with his shit backstage and they're in a carny business and trying to get ahead in a carny business, and they made some bad choices. And I'm not condoning Vince for trying to push them into worse choices or putting them in those situations. But also, you see, a lot of that stuff didn't come out. They took the money. That's a really weird gray area. But what I can clearly say is wrong is like some poor third-party contractor whose company just gets involved with WWE to make some money has to get Vince's old craggly penis on her phone if she, and she's a straight-laced businesswoman. That's fucked up. That's fucked up. She has nothing to do with a carny life. She has nothing to do with that weird backstage lifestyle. She's not trying to suck somebody's dick to get ahead in wrestling. Like this is just some poor woman who's going to work doing her thing. Vince takes a shine to her and thinks he can do whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah.
Like that is not somebody who has signed on for that nonsense. So that to me is clearly wrong. And I think that's more wrong than the cancel culture. But also I can't blame anyone who stands up and applauds the not terrible things that Vince did. I don't necessarily agree with them. I don't know that I can give Vince a standing O myself, but I can't say that all these people that he's fed and all these people that have careers and all these people that made something of themselves and got themselves in the history books, all those stories over the years that I have personally liked that he had his hand directly on. Sure, I probably hated 20% of the stuff that he had his hands on, but that doesn't account for the other 80%. And it's really weird in this day and age of canceling people for legitimately awful shit that they have done. Like, I still love Pulp Fiction. Harvey Weinstein's name is the first one on that motherfucker.
Yeah.
I do not love Harvey Weinstein, but I still love me some Pulp Fiction. And I'm sure that every time I watch that fucking thing, somehow 20 cents goes in that evil piece of shit's pocket.
Yeah, we're in a very difficult time to sort of process because we have so much information that's constantly feeding us just on repeat over and over and over again. And it comes and goes so quickly that when stuff happens that, and I don't want to say canceling and whatever. These are all these are words that don't mean anything to me anymore. They get used so much, but you have someone like a Bill Cosby. You find out what he's really like. Does that erase your whole life where he was, everyone's dad and he was like the safest, funniest person you ever knew your whole life? Like, does that take away all those memories?
It did. It did take away some of it, though. And
yeah,
that's the
like,
fucked
and
up
how
part.
do you?
Like,
But it's a difficult thing to go through, and then you find out, Michael Jackson was always a thing, but we didn't always know about it, and that's another very difficult thing to like rationalize or like comprehend. And then whatever Vince with wrestling, and then the movie industry.
But here's my whole thing.
Point,
here's my whole thing. We live in a country that thoroughly celebrates our Constitution. We love that piece of paper.
Yeah.
Those guys owned slaves.
Yep.
And at the time, it was considered not that bad a thing. You know what I'm saying? Vince McMahon was a misogynistic billionaire white man pig starting in the 80s. But also in the 80s, wasn't considered that bad a thing.
No,
it is, but at the same time, it's really hard.
Yeah.
And I'm not defending Vince. I'm really not. And I don't watching trains go by. I don't think that you're defending Vince in either. I don't know that anyone is really defending him, but it is really hard. Having been pretty much a lifelong wrestling fan, this guy is the godfather of what we know as wrestling today. He is the guy that made wrestling not be a territorial thing. He is the guy that brought the millions of people in the spectacle. He is the Ringling brother. He is that guy. He's the Ray Kroc that did McDonald's. He's the guy, for better or for worse. He's the guy that gave us wrestling the way it is today. And he got himself in a bad spot. And it's going to be really hard because you can't cancel Vince out of the history of wrestling.
Yeah.
It can't be done. There are too many people that owe their entire lives, other millionaires and gabillionaires. Like, what does Mark Calloway say about Vince McMahon? He doesn't say anything except, thank you for the house, sir. Like, he made the man gabillions of dollars as The Undertaker. There's never a day where that guy is ever going to be able to say something bad about Vince. Vince could stab one of his children, and what is he going to say? Well, I wouldn't have been able to feed that kid without you anyway, Vince. Like, what does he say?
I mean, Taker's given his whole body to WWE and to Vince. Like, he has a permanent limp because of loyalty to Vince. And, Vince is ridden in ambulances with him. And it's out there. There's nuance, there's gray areas, and it's just not absolutes. Like, he's done some bad stuff, he's done some good stuff, and like, it's like you shouldn't. It just sucks to have like your good memories and experiences taken away, to lose them because Vince, like, it's just kind of.
That's the thing, though. You can't take them away from me. Like, when I hear the broken glass and Vince McMahon's in the ring and Stone Cold comes down and there's something with some beers and a stunner.
Yeah.
Like, that's just embedded in my brain as something I enjoyed. There's nothing else I can say about it. I can't take away the Attitude Era from my enjoyment of wrestling. I cannot say truthfully that there aren't things that Vince McMahon did that greatly impacted my life, that I truly enjoyed, that I thought were just wonderful for some reason or another. And also that some of the things that he did in life were absolutely despicable and awful and unforgivable. He's the stepdad that beat the shit out of you, but also bought you your first puppy, and you still gave him a Father's Day card because he's still your stepdad. You know what I mean? Like, what do you do? I don't know.
All it took was that old Nokia camera phone.
I believe it was a Motorola Razr, as we covered on the show last week. I think he had an actual rich man flip phone that cost like $400 back then, which was unheard of.
Had like a 0.5 megapixel camera.
Yeah.
Cutting edge.
Oh my God. I actually did go and look at some of my old BlackBerry pictures that I had from my kids and shit. I was just like, And that camera on that BlackBerry was the shit. And I was looking at those like, oh my God, this is the grainiest piece of crap. This is like Fisher Price's My First Digital Picture. This is so bad.
Looks like a watercolor painting.
It's so bad. It's like Monet did this, and the pointillism wasn't so on point. So okay, let's get to the good stuff. Triple H has got the book.
Yeah.
Should Karrion Kross call him back? Should Kevin, like, I'm looking around, I'm like, and me and you talked about this a little bit offline, but like, dude, there's a serious need for some solid mid-card players at WWE. There has been for a couple months now, but you know, where does a guy like Karrion Kross fit in? Like, we don't know the full story with him, whether or not he had some kind of vax heat, whether or not it was just told a Nick Khan plan, like we've heard. You know, if he's just another one to go from that whole middle of the road culling that happened to clear up dead weight.
Yeah.
You know, but if you look around, who's available? Him and Gargano?
Yeah. Personally, I don't see Gargano going back to that schedule and to those restrictions. But also,
maybe he goes back to NXT and he goes to work once a week. It's not like even when he was at NXT towards the end that he had to go to PC or do all the other shit that a developmental contract person has to do.
There's that. And he was getting into producing. And as a father, maybe he gets a new perspective, and like,
or maybe he's not interested in it now. But we know, Killer Kross, Kevin Kross, is clearly interested in still being a top guy in some fashion. Now, he chose not to try to sign anywhere. He did not want to sign immediately. He was getting good booking rates. He was getting great dates. I mean, the guy's still doing 3 dates a week. Fucking 6 months later, 7 months later. I mean, he as far as indie guys go, even Cardona slowed down. To my estimation, Kevin Kross, all the Ks, is literally making the most of any guy on the indies simply because of the amount of work that he's taking and getting a top indie guy number 4. Now, he might not be getting the top as some of the former WWE guys that actually go out. Like, some of those guys command really high, stupid numbers. Also, they work once every 2 months. So they need to get paid that much.
I mean, if you ask me, I think Kross, whether intentionally or unintentionally, made about the smartest play he could make.
That was left to him. Yeah.
Was left to him. I think if you're running WWE and you have these upper mid card slots open in main event slots, but like, you're not going to probably bring in a Kross to be the main event for SummerSlam. At least not right away. No. I mean, you're going to.
We're still in the process of building him.
Yeah, you'll promote from within, and then at the, best case, have him fill the spot of someone who went up to that main event or something.
Right, but the difference with him and a lot of people is that, from what I understand, when he went out, there was a lot of guys in creative that were bummed. They had good creative plans for him. They saw him as a guy that, like, I think the writers kind of grabbed a hold of him because they were like, well, this is certainly something Vince will like. Like, this is an easy write because I can make Vince happy with this. So, of course, they liked him for that alone. But he was a joy to work with backstage from anyone you talk to. There was none of whatever you're hearing about Max DuPri right now.
I was going to say that he is he's very professional, and he has a very good perspective on being an asset and how to be an asset to his employer, to his company. And also through all of that and through like us talking to him, and you could see how well he carries on with a lot of fans and everyone. He has tact. So he's 100%. Not going to go up to a producer and say, you wrote me a pile of horse shit, but I made it look good.
And from what I understand, up at Raw, he didn't do that at all. He had some input on what was going on in NXT, but he earned it. And, he took his time to get to that input, doing the work, doing the gimmicks. And then, once he was starting to get that championship run, he was putting his 2 cents in or whatever. And then when he went up to Raw, Vince said, yeah, let's see what you got. Kid, put on this fucking skirt and go to Jeff Hardy. He was like, okay, cool. I can do that. I'll make it look good. Like, that's the way he's always been. He always knew what he was getting into with WWE. It's the reason why the first chance that he had to go, he didn't even go. He was like, no, man, I need the time. I want to go work on the indies. I want to go Impact. I want to build my character and my in-ring work a little bit more. Like, I haven't been doing this all that long. I'm in my 30s, and no, I'm not a spring chicken, but I still want to do it the right way. And he did. And so
you look at
again, I don't know if he's got any heat over, any philosophical differences with COVID or any of that shit. I don't know. But I also don't think that stuff matters the same way right now.
I don't think it does.
So
I mean,
can bygones be bygones with whatever reason he was let go, whether it was the Nick Khan vision and that's the other thing is it's not just fucking call it a Triple H, because Nick Khan is still Triple H's boss, even though Stephanie's right there with him.
Yeah,
but I also believe I also believe that if H wanted to bring back one or two select people, considering the void that they have at the top and the fact that, guys like Riddle and Theory they're almost forced to elevate them right now.
Yeah. I don't see the big creative direction really changing. I mean, you mentioned SummerSlam, and it'll be a slow work to that, and then after SummerSlam might be the full clean slate. But I
what
think
big changes can you even make? You have such a limited roster right now.
But I think though, with Triple H coming in and maybe a little bit of a shakeup, it opens the door. It opens doors that already work. That's not a saying or phrase, but it's like it makes a possibility of hiring Cross again, and Cross would come in and fit that vision that's already there. He is someone, that type of a talent who has that work rate, that promo, can do any type of segment. Because if you're a main eventer, upper main eventer, you need to wrestle a match. You need to do a backstage promo. You need to tape a promo. You got to do, be prepared to do a run. And you have to do a variety of different types of segments on a TV show to a high degree of success, in addition to constantly evolving your character like Jericho does, or look at Seth Rollins, right? Well, Seth Rollins has worked himself to where he never has to win a match, and he's going to always be the most interesting thing that pops on TV. Right. And his wife is Becky Lynch. But
I'll say this. Yeah. There's no way in hell with Triple H holding the book, Seth Rollins ever loses to Cody Rhodes 3 times in a row again. I will say that is my 100% guaranteed spoiler, is that Seth Rollins is going to win more matches, guys.
He'll be also, I mean,
of guys that Triple H really, really respects that are currently on the roster, Seth is definitely one of them. Yeah. There's no way if Triple H had the book, and I don't think that Seth had any problem with it, and I don't think Seth's going to go run into H complaining or anything, but I think H is going to book his boy a little bit higher up the card than some of the stuff that Seth's been getting recently, and I think Becky is going to probably receive a little bit of the same treatment via proxy.
Well, also Becky's one of his NXT kids that he believes in, and then Kevin Dunn didn't want to push her because of her Irish accent, and he said, did he say she was unfuckable, or was that AJ Lee? He probably said about both of them.
I think he agreed with AJ Lee saying it. I don't know.
Well, AJ Lee didn't say it, but he said he had those knocks against both of them. Also I just on the whole Seth thing, I think it'd be funny if he's doing the rematch with Cody when Cody comes back, and Hunter makes a point to walk over to them and their producer, and he's like, hey, so what are your near falls? And just waiting for them to be like, yeah, we're going to do the pedigree again,
Yeah. Nope. Well, I mean, there's definitely, I feel like as good as Cody and H kind of got to a place that smashing the throne may not be such a great thing for Cody now. I don't know that. Look, Cody is a Nick Khan plan.
Yeah.
Cody is, Cody was basically agreed upon by Vince wholeheartedly, because Nick was like, look, this is a great thing. We need one of these. And I don't know that Nick is going to really lay off that, but he's going to have to, explain it to Triple H, push it down Triple H's throat a little bit. Like, hey, we need a even better, squeakier, cleaner version of the Hogan thing from the mid 80s.
Yeah.
We need the take your vitamins guy.
To Cody's credit, when he was doing all those interviews, he referred to like wrestlers taking jabs at each other, and like he was taking a jab at Triple H, but he also said once he was signed back to WWE, he said like, I'm gonna get some heat or whatever, made fun of for this, but like Triple H is my favorite wrestler. That's why I took shots at him.
Yeah, you take a shot at the top guy. It is a sign of respect. Like you're not taking a shot at Sheamus. You're not smashing a Celtic cross because like that's not the guy to take the shot at. Triple H, it was a sign of like, you are the guy over there. That's the competition. What you are doing with NXT is what is on our radar. Yeah. We're not taking shots at Vince even. Like, you're the guy that we feel has his finger on the pulse of the Magic, who was the top guy before. And we're coming after what you're doing. We're going to smash your throne because that's the throne that we want, because that's the throne we respect and covet. Yeah.
So like Cody's hiring, they need to hire a few other people like Cody. And I think we were talking about Cross. Cross fits like a couple levels down on the card, but he fits that Cody mold, I think, to a T. Like, he could be plugged in and he has all of these skills. And we were talking about how does he fit in, because we were also a while back talking about how Malachi Black and Kevin Cross were characters based around violence and dark stuff. And how does that fit into a promotion that's being built around Austin Theory? So shop taken at Kevin? I don't know. Oh, that I would love a microwave grilled cheese sandwich. I'm so hungry.
No,
right
you
now.
wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't. But like my plan, if you were to ask me on the spot what to do, hire Cross. He's a guy who could come in and eat up 10 to 15 minutes every week on TV doing whatever, right?
Agreed.
But here's what you do. Don't make him be like Killer Cross. That's like, it makes it the action figures a little PG-13, even though it's PG-14 or what, TV-14. Give him of his version of Sean O'Hare's like devil's advocate gimmick that everyone loved. That, I mean, a ton of people, including Cross, still like idolized what Sean O'Hare was doing. Have him do something like that, because he can cut Thinky Man promos.
I'll go you one different. I'll tell you exactly what I think Kevin Cross should do in WWE if he goes back, or what they should do with him.
Whatever.
Which, me, like, I'm a fan of the, Ezekiels of the world, guys that can find a way. And even Eli Drake is part of the reason why I liked him, because these guys, I feel like, can find a way to just get stuff over. I think, but I also think it's a little bit difficult for Cross. Yes, he's a good talker, but he's a good talker a certain way. He's not really a comedy guy. He can be funny and jovial, and I mean, he can crack a joke and do a rib with the rest of them, but he's funny like JBL. He's not funny like, like Eli Drake could be. But
he could be really fourth wall funny at indie shows, by the way. If you get a chance to see Cross before he does get signed, go see him at a show.
And his whole thing when they played his Karrion Kross music that one time on that indie show was hilarious to me. And but also it's hilarious because you can't tell if he's ribbing the guy or if he's dead serious, like, I'm gonna fucking murder you for playing that. But no, you know what I think you do with him? You keep the hair, you don't shave him bald again, you don't put him back in the skirt, you send him down to the ring in blue jeans, belt buckle, boots with metal tips, and a fucking white t-shirt. You send him down there as a blue collar guy, not a cowboy, not a hillbilly, not, you send him down there as a little bit closer to the bouncer, to the blue collar guy, to the guy who is, maybe foreman at the construction site, but can still lift a steel beam. That guy. No gimmicks. No White Rabbit, no supernatural, no nothing. You send him down there, not as Stone Cold Steve Austin, but seriously just like the blue-collar guy, the everyman. Because you need him to be a babyface, but he has to be serious. Cross is never going to be the jovial babyface. He's never going to be the smiling babyface, and he's never going to be the rube that you get over on babyface. He needs to be the tough guy, everyman kind of babyface. And I think that's what you do with him at first. And then obviously the heel turn will be easy. You can go back to the killer gimmick. You can go back to the gladiator gimmick. You can go to all sorts of other stuff. But I think if you want to bring him in, build him up quickly, you do it that way. They tried to do something a little bit like that with Lacey Evans. And of course, by the way, Vince fucked that up and just made her go heel. He's like, no, I like her better as a heel. Ugh.
Oh my God, that was terrible. Does she have a career anymore?
No, I mean, they flip-flopped her like 3 times in the last 2 weeks again. They put her out there and they shoved those sappy promos down everyone's throats, but it was good. It was like, no, you need to understand the backstory. And it's just have her give so much exposition it hurts, and either the crowd's going to boo the shit out of it or they're going to kind of buy it. They kind of bought it. People weren't really booing. They were getting behind it a little bit. And it's like, okay, well, if you're going to do that, do the Roman Reigns with it. Shove her down our throats as a fucking all-American babyface for like 3 years. And just don't give a shit. Give her 5 minutes every single fucking episode. Just shove her down her throat. But no, they did the flip-flop thing, made her a fucking heel again already. And it's just like, oh my God, you guys are so stupid. Like, way to cool your own thing so bad. Yes, please bring back Paul London.
Now Paul London's one of the ones who hated.
I don't think that Paul. I don't know that Paul would go back just because too many of Vince's cronies that supported his shit are still there.
Yeah.
Until they really clean house, and honestly, let's not kid ourselves. H and Stephanie are still Vince's cronies too.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like they didn't know about some of the terrible shit that Vince has gotten himself into and turn the blind eye to a lot of it. A lot of people did. That's beside the point.
Yeah, there was stuff where like Vince and Kevin Dunn were trying to get some of the divas to ride in the private jet with them to shows, and you know what that means. And it's a lot of like, you don't want to go back into that system when
you've had friends that were destroyed by it. Yeah. I don't know that Paul's going to ever willingly walk back through that door.
And good for him.
Even with Vince out of the picture, but ask Paul about Massaro sometime, and you'll know exactly what he thinks. And he's posted half the stuff. I'm not giving anything away. It's not personal business I'm outing. He will tell you flat out his opinions of Vince McMahon and why, and what he feels like Vince has done to his personal friends and himself. But Paul doesn't care about himself as much as everybody else. Anyway, I think it's an interesting situation. I think Triple H has his work cut out for him. It's like the Nick Khan plan was working. The quarter 2 reports show that. You can't discount that, but also at the same time, Triple H is at an age where he's got to make a name for himself now and leave his legacy in a good place too. So he is going to want to do certain things, and Triple H is a little more from the same era as a lot of the AEW type of thinking and booking over there. I think he'll do it a little more WWE style with a little more packages. And honestly, if Triple H really can do for all of WWE what he did for NXT, he had more leeway with NXT though. It's a lot harder prospect to do that with the whole big show, and there's a lot of talent and contracts in there that you have to make it work with, as opposed to being able to build your own thing over a few years.
I would say though, the biggest impact with Triple H though, and getting rid of Dunn and Vince, is that, and also working with Nick Khan, is that there's going to be a consistent and coherent strategy with the show. There should be.
There's still a lot of people to gum up the works.
Yeah,
and he doesn't have all the stroke. Speaking of which, there's still a Jeff Jarrett in the mix too.
Yeah, but
I don't think it's a bad thing. My personal hope is that somehow Jeff and Paul hit it off and make some magic together. They might be the hope for the best thing we've seen in the business for a long time. Because you're looking at
WrestleMania main event night 1.
You're looking at two Monday Night Wars Attitude Era victors, I would almost say, even though Jeff had his bad years after that. These are guys that came out of that era, but also both understand the indie mentality. I don't know how Triple H got to understand it. I don't know how Triple H came to know that NXT should really be a super indie. I don't know. We know how Jeff Jarrett has spent his time out there doing it over the last 15 years, whether it be with TNA Impact or whether it be, Global Force Wrestling match, or the fact that he's going out and doing an indie this week at Ric Flair's last match. Like, Jarrett understands really that mentality now, the guys who are actually getting over on that circuit. But Jarrett also has something that a lot of people don't understand, and that is that live show promotion ability that came out of his dad's promotion. And the old guys like Lawler used to understand before he got stupid rich and famous to the point where he no longer cared. Jeff hasn't forgotten that shit because he's been forced in and out of it so many times in his life. But he knows how to put asses in seats. He knows how to promote. He knows what makes a good show. The guy knows his stuff. And he's really cleaned up his act. Because there's times, too, where just like Vince McMahon, I would tell you that Jeff Jarrett was a giant piece of shit. Like, he made some dastardly mean and evil and rude business decisions to some people that I know. I cannot say that everything that Jeff Jarrett has done has been on the up and up, or that I would condone it, even on just a business level. I'm not even talking about personal shit. So,
Jeff Jarrett, you mean the guy who is married to Kurt Angle's wife?
Woo!
When they were working a program together in TNA, and poor Kurt was all perked up.
I can't feel bad for Kurt Angle. He's made and lost and made so much money over his life and made so many bad decisions himself. Look, here's the thing, man. All these people, like, I don't like wrestling because it's a sport that's full of good people. I also don't like football because of that, or baseball. These people are not good people. People that have been rich and catered to their whole lives, or are carnies, and it's their job to try to get over on marks and sell shit and sell themselves and sell their bodies and do damage to themselves for other people's enjoyment. Like, these aren't the people that I look up to as people. I enjoy the entertainment. I enjoy the spectacle of it. And honest to God, sometimes when it's a hot mess is when it's the most interesting. I don't expect these people to be my heroes.
Yeah.
Just because they play them on TV. No one should. I don't expect actors to either.
It's interesting. It's easy to fall into that. You go to shows and they're nice to you, the indie shows, and it's cool. It's cool to go to a rock and roll show at a small club and you're, shoulder to shoulder getting a beer next to the lead singer before he goes on stage, But
rock stars are rewarded for that shit more than wrestlers and other people, because people seem to understand that rock stars are pieces of shit. But like, these guys are banging chicks 3-4 at a time, and bbelieve me, I've been around it. Oh, fuck Sting. Anyway,
I'm sorry.
Look, Kurt Cobain, everybody like worships him as, the icon of my generation, but also he was a piece of shit too. He was a terrible drug addict. He treated groupies like shit. His wife was also a piece of shit, but he treated her like shit, and then he blew his fucking head off. Like, not a good person. He can be respected for his art or what his existence meant to culture and counterculture statements and whatnot. But at the same time, these are not your idols, people. These are not your heroes. Yeah. Most famous people aren't. Most people who have done something amazing with their lives are not the heroes. It's really the guy that's down the street that sucked it up at some shit job at 7-Eleven to fucking let you get your Slurpee every day. That's probably the real hero. It's not Vince McMahon. It's not Jeff Jarrett. It certainly isn't fucking Kurt Angle either. Like, I don't care if he's a goddamn American hero. He ain't my hero. He's a fucking wrestler that entertained the shit out of me and then got hooked on fucking pills and did dumb shit for another 10 years. I mean, like, I'm not bowing down to the shrine of Jeff Hardy anytime soon.
All you have to do is just follow MMA fighters on Twitter. And whether or not it's regardless of your actual political stance on certain things. you're just going to see a lot of nonsensical gibberish.
Boom. Yes.
And you're like, hold on,
Truth.
I love this guy. Wait, no, you love watching him fight. You love the entertainment
You
part
love
of
seeing him punch people in the mouth.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. But like, you're fine. You don't need to go further and ask for their thoughts on how to make the air better to breathe or whatever, it's like, that's not what they're there for in your life.
Agreed. So let's leave the WWE for a minute. Let's talk about Gresham.
Speaking of fucking dumb fucks, I shouldn't say he's dumb. I think he's a little bit unstable emotionally.
But what happened? I mean, was this just a Napoleonic thing?
What I heard is, what I read is that he did get to talk to Sanjay Dutt and QT Marshall, and that there are liaisons or deputies or whatever underneath Tony, but there's certain things that he wanted to talk about, and they had to be okayed by Tony, and he couldn't get through to Tony for those things. Also, I think he was upset about jobbing out, upset about his character, and basically just kind of a lack of respect is overall what he was sort of feeling. All the reports are saying it's not like very specific about a few things. It's just he felt really insulted, and he got face to face with Tony in a conversation and told Tony off, and to me, it feels like he got really worked up, and whether it was on his own or whether someone helped him get really worked up about not getting what he was due, and the respect he was due. It's also difficult because he was champ on the show that wasn't running shows.
Right.
So
I mean, but look, you're the big fish of a small pond, and then all of a sudden you're the big fish of no pond.
Hold on.
And then
you're making a joke by saying big fish, aren't you?
Oh, I wasn't thinking that at all, but that's funny. No, but that literally is what it is. He was the top guy in a very small pond, that had its niche market, and that was fine. And then the whole pond is gone, but Tony buys it. He gets a little bit of a shine, a little bit of a rub from Tony, but now it's a much bigger pond. I mean, look at fucking I don't feel bad for Tony, but also look at the amount of stars he has, and he has 2 promotions. He's got a guy like Claudio who's got a history. You gotta put the belt on him. I'm sorry, Gresham, you just don't rate like that. But look at how Jay Lethal has kind of run with some of his opportunities in this thing. It's like, okay, man, here's the thing. You get to swim with the bigger fishes now and potentially become one of them. Like, Tony is a wrestling mark. Do you think that this guy is not at some point going to take care of you? Right. Like, Tony doesn't look at wrestlers the same way Vince does. Tony is not a guy that's going to look at a Gresham and be like, oh, he's undersized. I don't like him, blah, 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 blah. He's going to be like, oh, no, man, I got to totally put this belt on, I got to put this belt on Claudio right now, but we got to do a solid by Gresham. That's the kind of guy that Tony is, and he'll get back to you. It might be 2 or 3 months. He's got a huge, stupid roster, but he's taken care of everyone who's been in that situation. He could have, after the sandbagging thing, he could have taken the belt off of Thunder Rosa, but he didn't do that. He fucking appreciated all the work that she put in, didn't care about 1 week of bad press, didn't necessarily buy all of it anyway, said his piece about the shit, left the strap on her, and went on about his fucking business.
Yeah. And also, he made
care of everybody.
He made Gresham champ in the first place.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's like, because he was one of the guys that was willing to stick it out, to go through all the shit, to be on the close down show. And look, Claudio came in, and who's to say that it wouldn't have been Daniel Bryan even if Claudio didn't come in? You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God, Daniel Bryan as the Ring of Honor champ. You'll watch that show.
Exactly. And there's a bigger thing. I think he's seeing the picture too small.
I think someone was like,
he's not seeing a big picture.
Someone is like, you're the champ. Why aren't you being given the time of day? Who knows what his character and whatever storyline questions or comments or requests were and how good or bad they were, or even if he had the conversation and he didn't get him, how that would turn out. But like I think someone was in his ear and said, "You're not getting the respect that you have earned in your career as champ. You're the Ring of Honor champ."
Do you think that someone might be around the same height and have just as many muscles?
I don't. More muscles? No, Gresham is fucking yoked.
More than Jordan?
I think it's,
I was referencing Jordan. Jordan's jacked, yo.
Yeah. But he might have more. She might be taller than him.
Oh, I don't really. Maybe, I don't know.
But it's probably, I think, and this is all speculation, so it could be, if it's wrong, it's unfair to say, but it's maybe not a coincidence. We were talking about Jordan saying something foolish, last week or the week before that cost her $5,000. She said she tweeted something that had it wasn't answering a question, just out of nowhere. She's like, I need to say something really dumb that's going to cost me money and a lot of goodwill.
Well, yeah, look, people get in their own kind of, cognizant loops with, their people that, are supporting your own thinking.
Sorry.
It's like kind of like that Facebook principle, right? Of, you keep getting fed the information that is feeding into your own thoughts. And you get this feedback loop. And if Jordan's kind of going down those paths and she's the one that's talking to him all the time, and then he's going down that path, they're kind of feeding back into themselves. Like clearly something got stuck in his craw. And it's a shame because like, what does he do now?
What he does now is he kind of chills out, and then Tony kind of understands that he works with the wrestling industry and gives Gresham another shot down the road.
You know that Tony will. Absolutely, Tony, which was Tony's plan in the first place, even taking the belt off of him.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it changes what Tony's going to do with Gresham at all. It might change how he approaches him or what he says to him or how long he cools him.
Or like the contract he offers him next time. Right.
Like all it can do is weaken Gresham. But at the same time, Tony is not going to piss off the fans. And if any amount of hardcore fans want Gresham, Tony will absolutely listen to that. He's not going to, he's trying to do right by Ring of Honor, but the Ring of Honor, let's talk a little bit about Death Before Dishonor, because it was an interesting show in the fact that, you have new eyeballs coming in because of AEW. You're trying to pop a bigger buy rate. You're doing it in one of the bigger buildings that Ring of Honor has run before. But I have to say I did like the Super Card of Honor crowd being that smaller, more intimate thing. It almost felt like a bigger show to me because of that. Parts of this show felt too much like Ring of Honor was trying to be another AEW and shouldn't have been. And honestly, if you look at what the high spots of the show were, they were the moments that felt more Ring of Honor, like the Claudio winning. That wasn't a super long match. It did look a little awkward because Gresham was way undersized compared to Claudio. That was not a good opponent for him to lose the belt to. I won't deny that. It did not look good for Gresham. Like, can we get somebody that's only like 6'1" instead of somebody who's like 6'3" and fucking jacked, who's like a full foot taller than Gresham? That kind of hurt.
You see them in the ring and you're like, oh, I know.
Exactly. And Gresham was shorter than the ref, and it was like a stair step during the opening, and I was kind of like, God dang, that really is kind of a bad look. Like, Gresham looks competitive against a Jay Lethal or even, a Kenny Omega sized guy, but you put him in there with Claudio, and it's like, oh, dude, I'm sorry about your luck. That sucks. Because he's jacked as hell, and the dude is strong, and his work rate is
really good.
Sick. Like, he's good. He's totally good. So is Claudio, though. Like, as much as I didn't like a lot of his Cesaro in-ring stuff, you knew that was WWE. Everyone always knew it was. And he still got airplane spins and this kind of stuff or whatever, but it's more fun in Ring of Honor. I liked it when it was on top of the cage at AEW. Shit was spectacular. It's a dumb, stupid fucking move, but aren't half the rules and moves in wrestling dumb?
Yeah.
Anyway, but that match and that moment felt great. You know what else felt great? Dalton Castle and the boys.
Yeah.
So Ring of Honor, so fucking over. And I guarantee you half the people in that crowd and half the people watching on pay-per-view had no clue what the fuck a Dalton Castle was. The announcers did a great job of explaining the backstory. They did a great job of explaining the boys and his posse and why it was funny that they actually had names now. They made the whole story make sense. The crowd was probably, that might have been the loudest pops of the night, were the Claudio winning and the Dalton Castle stuff. Like the crowd
Dalton
was
Castle,
on fire, and the crowd went to sleep during some other shit that was really, really good.
Yeah.
They were fucking asleep for Roosh and Dragon Lee, which still makes me mad.
The thing
they
about
were like
Dalton
a Japanese
Castle
crowd. Oh
yeah, that's
go ahead.
That's a shame.
Talk about Dalton Castle because he deserves it.
Dalton Castle is, I mean, he's kind of like an Adam Cole in that he's been doing the act for a long time, but he's been off the TV for a minute, so it's beginning to freshen up. But he's also like, he's a staple of Ring of Honor. Like, this guy is a pure entertainment WWE type character, except whenever he gets in a ring, he wrestles like
Ring
a
of Honor
fucking
style.
badass, Ring of Honor style. He's throwing fucking exploders. And like, you see this guy and he has this very intricate like intro. He's using the boys as a fucking throne to sit on, or steps to walk into the ring, all this stuff. And like, he has this weird robe, all this stuff, but then he's a badass in the ring. And then on top of that, he still has he's hitting you in all these different ways. And then he still has entertainment things, like when he was throwing the boys out of the ring for planches. Just everyone, everyone started it just that woke the whole arena up.
And wrestling needs some of that kind of stuff too, because like, look, we've always had Adrian Adonises and even Mark Marrow at times, and Gold Dust and gimmicks like that. Pimpinella, like, it doesn't even have to be that far as like a pimpy character, but that kind of gimmick can work. And I think that in this particular day and age and culture, he's one of the few that is doing that kind of gimmick the right way. Like, it's not offensive. It's still fun. It's still funny. He's as over as Danhausen. Like, and it's just a gimmick. Like, Danhausen is over on gimmick alone. Decent worker. Like, Danhausen can work, but he's nothing special. But the gimmick is special. You cannot deny that it's kind of fun and funny to wear a Danhausen t-shirt. Like, I wouldn't be mad at a Danhausen shirt. I wouldn't be mad at a Dalton Castle shirt.
I watched a 10-second clip of Danhausen today on Twitter, and it was just him sitting in the chair. Then he gets distracted by the fabric of the chair. And I was like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Like, it's just, and this stuff is supposed to be entertainment. It doesn't all have to be bruiser guys who crush each other's faces. And Dalton can also do that, though. Like, he deserved the huge pop for the 6-man tag titles. And look, the Righteous, they were solid opponents. Like, these are good, solid workers. They've all been around for a long time. Even Vita Von Star, like, she got in a great spot, and they didn't even announce her during the ring entrance. She was like a complete afterthought, but she was still like, look, I'm getting a shot. I know this pay-per-view is going to be big. When I get my one little spot, I'm going to make that shit shine. And sure enough, she sure fucking did. In fact, I will give her the MVP award as probably the most entertaining of the women on the entire card. The fucking, oh my God, the pre-show match with Willow Nightingale and Allison Kay. Like, how is that your buy-in match? That is a cash-out match. That is not your last match of a buy-in. That is not what gets you hyped to purchase a pay-per-view. You do not put that last. That was not good. Sorry, guys.
I really hate to say this, but I mean, I really hate to say anything bad about Allison Kay, but I really just don't think she translates to anything above NWA.
I have seen Allison Kay in some amazing matches. In fact, Thunder Rosa just made a post, I think, saying that she wants Allison Kay and was showing some clips from another match, not from this match. Again, we've talked about this before, but it is a little bit of the same in women's MMA, and it's a little bit the same in women's wrestling, that there is a little bit of an experience gap. And it sucks because it is really difficult for the women to get the same kind of opportunities to fill that gap. There's also not the same lineage or training or people that understand women's wrestling matches that you have the same amount of access to. It takes a long time. And, you know, part of what I think made Thunder Rosa so good was working with Sammy Guevara and actually working with some of the boys, because in Lucha Underground, you weren't just working the women. And Thunder Rosa got that very early on at a perfect time, you know, and then also went out on the indies and got great stuff from people like Serena Deeb and from Taya Valkyrie and some of those other people that are really seasoned who actually know how to do it as women with women. Not all of the female performers get that. Allison Kay has had some great moments, and so has Willow for that matter.
Yeah,
but the two of them together, this did not fucking click, bro. It was so just not a go home moment before a pay-per-view for a buy-in. I was like, oh, I feel so bad because like I could see on a fucking layout how this would work. I could see on the fucking sheet how this would fucking lead into the pay-per-view perfectly. It didn't. It should have been the Colt Cabana match. And of course, my boy JD Drake was out there with his boy fucking Anthony Henry from the fucking Workhorsemen. I love the Workhorsemen. Guys, if you have an indie show come to your town and the Workhorsemen are on it, I've met JD and Anthony a couple times personally, but I don't know shit about them. They're not my boys or anything. Like, all I know is I have the utmost respect for how they work an indie show. These are guys just like Eli Drake that I like can walk into any room, can make it happen. JD Drake, especially, he is a veteran. He should be training everybody. You know, he's a Hugh Morris kind of guy. He knows the fucking business. He understands what the fuck is out there. He also knows exactly what he is. He knows he's not the guy with the body or the physique or the tough guy thing, but he can cut a promo. He can heal a crowd. He can face them too if he needs to. He knows when to just do a job and fucking lay down. He knows when to give it some pepper, make it interesting. He knows when to throw hard. Vinny Massaro is kind of the same way. Like, some of these guys have just been around and they just fucking know. JD Drake's one of those guys. He's taken Anthony Henry under his wing, who's kind of like this junior Matt Sydal kind of character. He can flip and fly a little bit, but he's just a solid worker. He can do all the stuff, and JD can work the psychology while, you know, Anthony does all the fucking running. Which is true. I mean, and Sydal's always been good in that role too. Like, oh my God, if you could make Sydal and JD Drake the Workhorsemen, they'd be a top fucking tag team. I'd put them up against FDR any day. Like, those guys are just great. But look, for the buy-in show, the Shinobi Zero Squad with Cheeseburger in it versus Slim J and Ari Daivari. I don't know what the deal is with Ari Daivari, and AEW's bringing him now, and he even got a fucking promo package. Haven't seen one of those in AEW in ages. Like this guy is coming. Yeah. Really? Do we care? This is not fucking Chris Jericho doing Y2J, guys. Let's look at what the standard for coming soon promos is, and let's consider whether or not Ari Daivari is one of those or not.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of, you know, he's trying to Tony's trying to establish a character. And it's not saying, hey, check out this big superstar that you always wanted. It's like, hey, start to get familiar with this. Yeah, and look, and I'm not saying that's the wrong thing to do. We keep saying every week, like, everything needs more storylines, Tony, and maybe this is the start of it. I just thought that was kind of interesting. It's like you don't get a Claudio is coming soon package or a Christian Cage is coming soon package. We get a fucking Ari Daivari, Aria. It's not Aria anymore, right? It's just Ari Daivari.
I think so. Whatever. Yeah. It was just interesting to see. But you know, you got to see him in action here. Then I don't know what the story is on the Tully Blanchard thing. All of a sudden, Prince Nana's back and Tully's out just as a fucking promo. No story. Yeah. Did Tully piss somebody off? Is there heat? Is there something going on? That was weird.
It hasn't really. The details haven't come out, but. Tully didn't get on the plane. He didn't show up. So
it was a decent fix, so you don't have to change your whole match layout or whatever to still put somebody in there as the heel manager.
Just if you bought the shirt last week for Tole Enterprises, sorry.
Yeah, I know. And it's like, and if you're Brian Cage, how secondhand used do you feel right now? Like, I can't even come to your smaller promotion and keep my manager? Like, fucking. And the one thing Cage needs is somebody to do a little bit of talking. Like, he can do a hoss fight mic spot, but he's not going to be doing a whole lot else. He's not going to be getting your intricate story details in there. He's going to work up a fucking fight. He's going to tell a guy he's going to put his foot in his ass and make it as intimidating as a Brian Cage can. But, I can't believe that they said his weight was like 205 or whatever. I think
Cage?
Something ridiculous.
He has to be like at least 250.
I don't know. But he's also not very tall. I mean, he's taller than Gresham, but anyway, that was it for the show.
He's not taller. He's not taller than us. That's for sure.
Yeah. You kick off the pay-per-view with the Claudio thing, which I thought was the right call because, and I love that they explained it as a coin flip, even if that's not how it actually went down. I thought that was a great, I thought that was a fun way to do that. Of just saying, yeah, we had these two great headlining matches. And honestly, I think that match could have finished the show. But it couldn't. But the FTR match could not have opened the show, and that's the problem with that. If the FTR match is the headliner with Dim Boys, then it just has to be the headliner, and you put Claudio first. But yeah, that could. If you don't put that as the headliner, it can't even go as the co-headliner. I think it has to go middle of the card.
Could you imagine starting a show with like a 60-minute tag match?
Yeah, that would have been hilarious.
And like, okay, it's great. You had your fun and it's over. And then the rest, like the next 3 matches, people are just dead.
Well, but also in their defense, they never said that the coin flip was to determine who was going to go lead off the show. The coin flip was going to determine who was the headliner going last. And maybe if there was actually a coin flip and it had landed with Claudio going last, then FTR would have probably been the co-main right before it. I don't think they would have put it on first. I don't think you can.
I don't know. I think they followed Tony's strategy with Dynamite, where they have the co-main events. It's the first and the last match are the 2 most important matches on Dynamite.
Maybe. It worked better here than in most Dynamites to me. Wheeler Yuta defeats Daniel Garcia for the Pure title. Look, and Blackpool Combat Club has a lot of gold right now. They got the interim champion, they got the Ring of Honor Pure champion, and they got the Ring of Honor champion. That's a good look for Blackpool Combat Club for all the people who are saying, oh, this is going to be the hottest gimmick around and blah, blah, blah. Like, the only thing that's not hot in the gimmick that ever didn't quite work out was DuPri. Bryan Danielson, should have come in bigger, probably should have gotten a run at the top right off the bat. Didn't, because Tony had other plans, and I think that is still coming. And then, of course, he gets hurt. Yeah, so the DuPri stuff is the only part of Blackpool that hasn't worked. I think it's been a good look for Mox. I'm not even a huge Mox fan, but I like Blackpool Combat Club. Obviously, it's working for, propelling Yuta. I think that bringing Claudio in gives it even more credibility. And of course, Regal there is what sells it the whole time. And Regal on commentary is delicious. I don't know any other way to put it. And on Ring of Honor, they explained it even better because they called him out on it. Like, damn, Regal, these are your guys, but you're still, able to really point out all the good stuff about the other guy. And he's like, because I want my guys fighting the best guys. It was like the best sell ever. Why can't people come up with simple stuff like this? Like, that's a tough guy thing to say. That's in character. That drives story of him saying, yeah, like, I could put every tough guy in these promotions in Blackpool Combat Club, but then my guys wouldn't have iron to sharpen iron.
Iron sharpens iron.
It was the most logical thing for a non-logical thing ever. And William Regal, in like 2 sentences, sold it so perfectly, and then can sit there and tell you why Daniel Garcia is a threat, make you actually believe that Daniel Garcia is a threat to the entire Blackpool Combat Club, not just to Wheeler. Like, that is good commentary. That is what AEW is missing on a regular basis. Even Excalibur. Excalibur can call a match, can call moves, but there is so much shit gumming up the works on that fucking desk. But then every time Regal sits down, it is like a breath of fresh air. Mm-hmm. I don't want them to take him out of the Blackpool Combat Club, but at the same time, man, you almost got to think about it. So the Roosh Dragon Lee thing, you know, you got the Big Brother thing here fighting Dragon Lee. Like, I don't think people understood how special this was. I felt like even the Ring of Honor fans who were in the crowd were not really giving Roosh his due. I don't know. The crowd was really dead. It felt really off, but it didn't feel like Roosh and Dragon Lee did not do what they were supposed to do. I thought the ring psychology was there. I thought they told the story the right way. I thought the announce team was great. The crowd just wasn't feeling it for some reason. And it was a great match. I loved it. I thought the Lucha Libre was on point. I thought it really got across Roosh's character. Like, you understood his entire indie history with what they did with the storytelling in that match. How he was healing on the crowd, you know, how he was showing the Ring of Honor respect, but then was kind of turning on that and getting more and more brutal the whole time to kind of prove who he was. Mm-hmm. He looked like a fucking $1 million. He looked like he should be the Ring of Honor champion again. Like, I just didn't get what the crowd saw differently than what I was seeing. They seemed completely bored. They were barely popping at really high spots and great mat work and all of the things that a Ring of Honor fan should want to see. Yeah. So is he just not famous enough? Did they not recognize him? Did AEW already fuck it up by debuting him and making him seem like a scrub?
I don't know. I don't know, because
am I wrong? Did you like the match?
I mean, I was trying to watch it, but I was trying to put it from my laptop to the TV, and the
you
audio
got the weird
was
sync
off.
issue.
So like I'm watching that match, but it's different watching a wrestling match when you see a kick out before you hear the 2 count.
Right. Understood. I've dealt with that a few times myself, and it makes it a little less enjoyable.
But they went all out. I mean, they shook their hands, but they didn't hold back. They used all their bags of tricks.
Yeah.
It was
everything it was supposed to be.
It was great. And like, they're brothers, so like they're going to go harder with each other than anyone else.
I almost wish that match had been on the Flair's last match card or someplace else. Like, it just seemed underappreciated here, and it got hype online. Like, nobody was talking about it. Nobody seemed to care.
It got put together the week before, and that's a thing with Tony shows. Forbidden Door had a bunch of matches, and maybe that's the problem. Maybe no storyline.
But I thought what they did with it on the night and in the ring, like, I can't bag on that. I can only say that maybe Tony just didn't promote it the right way.
I mean, he listens, and like I think Lucha Blog tweeted something, and then Tony saw that pretty much and made the match. And like Roosh suggested Dragon Lee for a match, so Tony did it. And there's benefits to that,
right?
But also, you're doing this the week before.
It's just so weird. The crowd was so hot for Dalton Castle and Wheeler Yuta and Daniel Garcia as well. And it's like, man, if this crowd can get up for Wheeler Yuta and Daniel Garcia, how are they not getting up for Roosh and Dragon Lee? But then the crowd stayed cold for Mercedes Martinez and Serena Deeb, which I thought just wasn't entertaining. It wasn't like they weren't doing anything wrong. Like, you're never going to say Serena Deeb's bad, especially not with work rate or in the ring. But the crowd wasn't into it. And this one, I also wasn't very into. Like, there just wasn't anything that could make me care. I didn't believe that Serena was going to win. It's also kind of depressing that she's just like, that's it for Serena Deeb to a certain extent. Like, maybe Tony gives her a victory run at some point, but also he shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
He shouldn't. Like, I got nothing wrong with Serena Deeb, but she doesn't read like she's going to put asses in seats. You know what I mean? Like, Tony's had a couple of workhorse women's champions in AEW already. I don't think he can do it again, not for a while. He's got to go with entertainment factor. If he takes the belt off of Mel, it's got to go on Britt, or it's got to go on Tony. It's got to go on something that's more entertainment factor than workhorse.
Yeah.
For the next person. Like maybe there, and then maybe down the line, there's an opportunity for Serena there. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was the right call to leave Mercedes with the belt. You've got to build that up as some kind of credible thing. Like, I feel like she's going to have a long run, whether you want her to or not. Obviously, Serena's somebody who can carry her to a good match, and relatively did. There just wasn't anything about it that I cared about, which sucked that it was basically in this kind of co-headline spot. I feel like this spot would have been better to be Wheeler and Daniel. Or maybe you put this, I think you could have kept the crowd better by laying some of this out differently. But then you get the crowd back for Samoa Joe and Jay Lethal. That was great.
Yeah.
It was exactly what was advertised. Joe looks like he's lost a little bit of a step, and he's nursing a couple things right now. The guy, this is going to be the case, guys. Every time we see Samoa Joe, then you're going to not see Samoa Joe. Like, the guy is just not a spring chicken. And when he goes, he wants to really go. It's part of why you haven't seen him on a bunch of TV leading up to this, because Joe needed to make sure he could be in this.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that we got Bryan Danielson and Samoa Joe back, and then they started wrestling every week. And a similar thing happened with Jeff Hardy. They were used.
Wait, everybody's got to give big shouts to our boy Goetze.
All right, later, Goetze.
Peace out, brother.
Sayonara, something.
Keep going, Barton.
Johnny, right? Bye. I don't know. Duolingo. And they need the reps to get in shape and to keep their timing. Bryan Danielson had talked about how he kind of feels 10 matches a month is his wheelhouse. That's when he is in the groove.
Ciao.
But then he got hurt. And then Samoa Joe got hurt. Jeff Hardy just ran himself. He, put him in a spot
he got
where
hurt, but in a whole different way.
But still, like,
he hurt his soul.
Like, I mean,
how long does it take to come back from a soul injury?
Right. And it's just, I think, I don't know what the answer is, but like, I want to see Bryan Danielson wrestle all the time. I want him to get the reps that he needs to get, but also, like,
he's going to do that twice a year, but then the rest of the year, he's not going to do that. I mean, that's all these guys. And this is why Vince realized that the part-timer contracts, Roman Reigns is on a part-timer contract now. People don't know that. People don't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they have limited amount of dates with him. Now, it's still a bigger number than a lot of those guys. He's not on like the short appearance thing. Like Randy, Edge, and Roman, all three of them are on part-timer contracts. You got to do that with like a Sting or Bryan Danielson, or you got to use Bryan Danielson like Sting, which is exactly what they did. But then everyone complained about it because you have all this hype about the best wrestler in the world. But then Bryan Danielson is Sting. Like, he should be going in 3 or 4 matches in, a 3-month cycle to the pay-per-view, not like 20. It's not in the cards for him, man. It's not in the cards for Samoa Joe either. Like, and I know everybody remembers these great things and these great moments, and I think you still get great moments out of them, but you shouldn't Ric Flair them where you like use them up till they can't do the turnbuckle flip anymore. Like, that's not what anybody wants. You want to see them be able to get in there. You want them to see them be healthy. You want to see a few more great storylines and not just weekly schlock. Like, I don't want to see Bryan Danielson in another club fest with Chris Jericho and those guys and, 5 tough matches leading up to that shit. Like, no. Build a program. Let him talk a bunch about being the best wrestler in the world. Let him get a couple of warm-ups in with some decent guys that are not going to fucking potato or have to do crazy high spots with him, and then let him go hard at a pay-per-view. Yeah. Like, and do it twice a year and let that be that. Same for Joe, same for any of those guys. Matt Hardy, sure, let's see him every now and then. Even Christian Cage. They're doing it right with Christian Cage. Let him talk a lot working up to a big thing. Let him get in some tags, let him get some time, but also don't like fucking push it. It's not worth it for him or us. And we don't need every match to be goddamn 20 minutes. I don't need fucking 2 commercial breaks in every fucking match, man. I just don't. And WWE's been doing it more too, because they ain't got nobody on their fucking roster. WWE matches have gotten real. Oh my God. Anyway, yeah, real quick to finish off the Death Before Dishonor, because I want to quickly talk about SmackDown. But FTR Briscoes 2 out of 3. Holy fucking hell. Like, I won't say the first match was better. The one that they did at Super Card of Honor was better. But there is not a soul on planet Earth that shouldn't say these 4 guys showed you what it's like when 4 dudes love professional wrestling and are willing to do anything for it to entertain you for your dollar. They deserve every ounce of respect you can give them. I don't care about their, the out of the ring shit that the Briscoes have, whatever cancel culture issues they may have that will keep them from ever getting into the big promotions.
I think
they got to a big Ring of Honor contract though. They're here. Tony is back.
Come around. They're like they're earning their way back.
Yeah. And look, they've had matches. Like, Mark has not always been the most reliable, but his brother's been super solid for a long time and has had, huge singles runs and shit before. But this match, like, none of those guys were 100%. Actually, I think Mark Briscoe was the most 100% guy in the match, which is hilarious because he's spent half his career just in shambles and he looks the most healthy now out of all 4 of them. Those guys just, they had an agreement with each other to like go for broke. I mean, chopping each other till the blood blisters happen, hard, tough spots, still calling for more. A couple of slightly botched falls where they didn't quite back bump the right way. Like, not good for your overall health. This match was not good for any of those men. So, dear Lord, please give them some respect for what they did, because it was really to entertain the pure wrestling fans. And I almost feel bad for being one of them because I did appreciate it. And at the same time, those 4 guys should not have to do that for my entertainment. They really shouldn't. Some of those bumps were nasty, man. There was just some nasty shit in that match where you're like, oh.
Yeah.
And it didn't even look all that great. Like, it wasn't the 7-star FTR. It wasn't. It was like 4.5 star FTR. But God bless them anyway. Who the fuck cares? Like, I'm really starting to say, like, they really are the best tag team right now. They really are. They just are.
They made it a point to not just say it. They put a plan into action, and they've been proving it against all the tag teams that they want to wrestle in all the different promotions.
And even when they were coming up and doing their WWE stuff or whatever, like Revival or whatever, like, I would hear about them and I would be like, I don't know. It's a couple of small guys that just do whatever. But like, I started believing it more and more. And then their little Raw run was actually really good. Like, it really was. Like, they were hanging in there with some big dudes and they were looking credible and they looked like, wait a minute. Every time these guys are in one of these throwaway fucking Vince, matches that's just to fill time on Raw that has no implications to real storylines, like, they're the best thing in it. They're carrying everyone else. They're keeping it exciting, and they're taking the worst fucking bumps. They're throwing hard shots. They're giving bumps, but they're taking the worst ones. And, and when they came into AEW, I didn't like their initial gimmick. I thought it was a little... I don't know. It didn't feel indie cred enough. And so this kind of spot where they're the Ring of Honor champs and not the AEW champs actually feels much better, to the point where now you want to see them put on the AEW straps too. You literally want to see these guys carry all the gold and fuck over every other tag team that's working just as hard.
Well, when the Bucks were cutting a promo against 2 other tag teams, for a 3-way match for the titles. They couldn't get a word out. They were, without being drowned out by the crowd chanting FTR. FTR was not in the promo. They weren't in the match. They had
they're not.
connection. They weren't in a match with any of those guys the week before. It's been the same 3 teams around each other for the past couple weeks leading up to that. But I mean, FTR got themselves more over than the Bucks for now.
Yeah, and you're seeing that Tony has a little bit of an issue. Like, having all these belts is not necessarily a bad thing with these huge rosters, but to the point where now in your storylines, you're having to acknowledge stuff like Thunder Rosa has to acknowledge Jade because they've done such a good job with Jade.
Yeah.
Young Bucks have to acknowledge FTR because they've done such a good job with FTR. It's not necessarily a bad problem to have. These are good problems that can lead to money in the pockets and big houses later. So more power to them. But I got to talk a little bit about this SmackDown that I watched, because I just found it interesting that, like, at one point in the show, there were like 4 commercial breaks and not a single wrestling match. It was all packaged stuff, backstories, in-ring promos, and it all felt different, and it felt like it was flowing. But, and then the few matches that they did have were really long. And I don't know if that was partially a quick rewrite because of Brock quitting and then unquitting or whatever the fuck happened with Brock. You know, it was like when SmackDown went on the air, the news was Brock had quit WWE and he was at Vince's house and they were having Mai Tais and raping girls or something. I don't know what the fuck was going on. But yeah, I mean, look, the talk was that Brock was backing Vince and Vince was his guy, and if Vince was out, he was out. But it was like, also Brock, that was Vince's choice because that's what Vince wants to do to protect his money. This isn't like, you know, your other people pushing him out. And I get it if you don't want to be there because Vince isn't there, but there's also a way to do it. And clearly he came back by the end of the show. I'm sure Heyman or somebody was like, hey, buddy, by the way, if you do this, you void like another $12 million on your contract. You might want to rethink this.
I mean, there's also, like, with a guy like Brock, he's a guy who probably deals with Vince McMahon man-to-man for, like, I don't know, for most of his career. And that's the guy who assures Brock that he'll be taken care of and respected and compensated. And so
there's not a lot of people that are telling Brock to lay down for Roman that aren't Vince McMahon.
And it's sort of like a version, a very informal version of that key man clause, I think. And like, okay, maybe, and he also gets heated and worked up, you know.
Yeah, it's like, I only deal with the big guy. Who is this schmuck from creative telling me what's going to happen tonight?
And he's like, oh, maybe he didn't hear the whole story and heard that Vince got pushed out. Well, of course he's going to be loyal to his guy and do whatever. And also, conversely, I've read a little bit that Heyman and Stephanie McMahon have a really solid business relationship, mutual respect. We could also see Paul Heyman kind of get more influence again and be able to be involved a lot more creatively.
Maybe not. He might get pushed around because the problem for Paul is that his contract is actually, you know, primarily a talent contract right now. Yeah. And he has that juice and that stroke and that respect from Vince. And that was just kind of how they chose for Paul to get paid. And for Paul to not be too threatening to other people who were in creative control positions. But Paul has also been one of the key creative control people with Roman and Brock and the top, whatever the top angle is. So it's going to be an interesting situation for Paul, I think.
I mean, I think he's a voice that could convince Brock to have faith. In
one of the few, I agree.
Yeah. But
we'll see. I just thought that SmackDown was kind of interesting for that alone. Like, look, they really were pushing theory through the roof a lot. But again, this was also the last Vince creative show where it's kind of just like, okay, whatever's on the sheet, let's just do it. And then we'll figure shit out next week. You know, and they've got this weird thing of like trying to do go homes now to a pay-per-view that Triple H is writing, but Triple H isn't really writing the go homes. So I don't know.
They got to sort it out.
We'll see. I find it all interesting. Like there's there's a couple other things from AEW that I found interesting this week. Like I love what they were able to do with Brody King in a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
He feels like he actually means something right now, and Darby was the perfect foil for that. Even the smashing the t-shirt tables at the fucking indie show, and then actually using the footage and letting it go viral
Comic-Con.
on the that's what it was. It was at Comic-Con. I mean, that was just smart. The Swerve in Our Glory celebration thing with the cake smash on Smart Mark is such wrestling TV.
Yeah,
but what they've done with the Swerve character, and God, I hope they keep telling the story right. It's been subtle so far, and it's a slow build, but you got to keep it going. They've got the belts now. There's some interest. Keep it going.
but
Austin
I did see on Reddit, I did see a couple. I did see some people saying like, why are the rappers on the show, or like that rapper's a nobody, blah blah blah. Blah blah blah, and all the stuff. It was kind of funny to see someone say that, and then someone else piped in, and it was like, it's all the idiots like you that were saying like Brown Bunny was a nobody and he was just a bunch of gibberish doing all this.
Bunny, you mean?
Bad Bunny, Brown Bunny's a movie. The fuck do I know about anything?
But
I do know that Bad Bunny is like a top mainstream star in the whole world. I didn't really like his segments or what he was doing. And okay,
I mean, Bad Bunny though also at least came to fucking play.
But he earned my respect. But
he sure did.
But
he had a pretty damn good WrestleMania for a guy who is not a professional wrestler, who's a fucking professional recording artist with millions in the bank that did not need to be there.
Right? Yeah.
He did not need extra record sales. There was nobody in his camp saying, "Yeah, potentially go out and hurt yourself to sell some more records." They were good. They were selling plenty of records before WrestleMania.
I respect 1,000% that WWE or wrestling in general got the rub from him.
Who that? What up, Zeus?
What up, Zeus? So like this segment, Swerve is it's a little clumsily blocked, but it's also like it's live TV and it's real, and so like they have the guy ringside, and I don't know who he is. Why would I know who he is? But a lot of people do. And you're trying to like get an audience. You're trying to get the audience that knows who he is. And I'm not going to look at that and take offense to it.
The trick to it is, though, it's like if you had a punk rock artist on there and they have the obscure, cool, like even Darby Allin wears obscure, cool punk rock shirts. Yeah. It's part of the Swerve character that you understand that he understands the pulse of the hip hop community for trap music and Southern hip hop. Like that's the character. That was the exact right move. You don't need to know who it is. All you need to know is Swerve knows who it is, and it's cool to Swerve and in Swerve's community. No one's expecting you to know that. Just like I don't know what fucking indie G.G. Allen ripoff band Darby is liking right now. That is out there, doing performance art, Jim Rose sideshow circus style that Darby thinks is funny and kitschy. Like, that's not necessarily my music, but the fact that I know that Darby is into it and that he's actually passionate about that shit helps his character. He's the skateboard and punk rock kid. Swerve is the fucking thug street rap guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you get it, right? But I thought it was funny to see some people who I took it as like a personal, like they felt personally like attacked. Why is this thing that's not catered specifically to me? Why is this on the show? It's a dud because it's not catered to me. It's the whole rap is crap fucking thing. It's like sit back and enjoy it, man.
Let me say this real quick because this kind of pissed me off. I liked where the whole Christian Cage Jungle Boy thing was going for like a segment that nobody should care about. Of course, Christian's promos have put it over the top. I liked what they've been doing with Luchasaurus. I felt like having Luchasaurus do the step aside this early on the Jungle Boy return was a hot-shotting move and was bad. That was a bad call. Like, you could have made something out of Austin Metalsaurus with that, but now you're fucking it already. Maybe they got something up their sleeve that's going to make it interesting. but even the look and the way that Luchasaurus played the scene at the end and the way Christian played it at the end, like, it wasn't good.
It just sucked everything out. And
the return was fine. You should have left it with a big question mark of Luchasaurus just kind of like not being in it at all or making a decision one way or the other. Him stepping aside, even if you swerve it back the other way now, was still hot-shotting. Still grade A bullshit hot-shotting in a bad call and looked like rookie junior fucking booking mistake by Tony. I did not like that. I did like, however, Ricky Starks getting an FTW squash match. That was great. And then not accepting the challenge, also great.
Getting promos.
And the fact that it's Danhausen. God, if they put the FTW strap on Danhausen, that would just be great. You could get weeks and weeks out of the Ricky Starks thing and Taz being all like, why is this guy on my fucking belt? I can't do the accent like Casey.
Outlaw from like, Red Hook.
Being mad that there's potato chips on his belt and, you know, from hanging out with Hook, his own kid.
That's a whole nother thing.
The whole thing would be hilarious. And like get Hook involved and like, Dad, I know it's your belt. But whatever. You know, let him do his junior Orange Cassidy, whatever vibes on his dad's own belt while Danhausen has it and Ricky Starks is running around Starks raving mad. I just think the whole thing could be entertaining. And even if Ricky just retains, it's still funny to have Danhausen challenging for a meaningless belt and Ricky Stark. I love it. I thought the whole thing was great. The fight like an 8-year-old girl promo.
Yeah.
Great. And then I thought that Athena and Jade in their match with Kira Balea and Willow Knight and whoever else was in the match, that didn't really matter. It was great. Like, I actually want to see Jade and Athena now. I'm worried though, because it was great for a very limited amount of time in a tag match, which is also why I say women's tag should really be a thing, because it protected Jade and Athena, for that matter, perfectly. This is the perfect example of how you use a women's tag match, or any tag match for that fact. Like, protect people's weaknesses, accentuate their strengths. I loved the moments where Athena and Jade locked up. It was good shit. They have a weird body mismatch thing going on, but also equally as powerful. And like, the whole thing was very interesting to the mind. It was intriguing. And it's like, this is what you want from wrestling. You want to actually see where something goes. This match worked for that. Period. End of story. Now, can Athena and Jade get in a ring for 15 minutes and sell me on that within just being the two of them? Probably not. But we'll see.
We'll see.
All right, Zeus. Deuce is Zeus.
See you, Zeus.
I just thought that was interesting. I also thought that the House of the Dragon Game of Thrones premiere that showed in both Rampage and Dynamite was some of the most compelling television that Warner Brothers has put out in a long time. I like to see that the Discovery Warner thing, the whole merge, is actually happening, because, you know, TNT and HBO were both owned by AOL before, but AOL wasn't smart enough to do crossover shit like this. Now, you just flat out get a fucking Game of Thrones ad in the middle of an episode of Dynamite. It's smart. Like, and you get Food Network ads and stuff. Like, Discovery, I'm a big fan of, like, if we're going to have these big streaming services, like, I want all the shit in one place. Pretty please. Give me all your good shit. I want fucking Shark Week at the same time I'm watching, you know, Westworld. I want both. And I'll put AEW right in the middle, or Ring of Honor, or whatever they put on HBO Max. Anyway, that's beside the point. Painmaker versus Eddie Kingston in the Barbed Wire Everywhere match. JS Shark Tank, Dwayne The Rock Johnson advertising for Discovery in the middle of another wrestling show. Amazing. I like everything about this. My whole brain was like, what the fuck is happening? This is crazy. It was fun. Like, the suckiest thing was Ty Conte not being able to open the cage and the guy slipping through the bars. Fucking hilarious.
How is she botching every single
Hilarious.
running that she does?
It wasn't. I don't think it was her fault, man. Like the key wasn't working right, or it was the wrong key, or whatever. I don't know what happened. Everyone got out eventually, and they took the camera away. But dear Lord, director, do not hang on that shot for so long. Go back to the ring. Like it wasn't working, bro. When the gimmicks don't work, let's change the camera shots.
The blood and guts match, she couldn't get the whatever liquid.
Maybe it's a running joke, and then she's backstage and all her Twitter with the key and a bunch of photos. Like at least they're running with this stuff, and like Britt Baker bringing Thunder Rosa the sandbag. Some of the real inside baseball promos that people have been cutting on each other recently. Keep it all. It's all worth it. It's funny. It makes the smart marks feel like they're smart, even though you turned it back into a work. And honestly, I was thinking about the sandbag thing with Thunder Rosa. That is so great because history will now record the angle part of it more than the part where fans were actually disparaging her.
Yeah.
Like that part is a flash in the pan. It's gone. But that doesn't happen if you don't make the joke out of it, because making the joke out of it and making Britt, have that in her character, wherever it came from, even if it was a shoot, still makes it feel like, look, guys, the other workers think that what you said as fans is a fucking joke.
Yeah.
Like they're making a joke out of you fans. The joke is on you. And also, it's hilariously funny that Britt would call Thunder Rosa out on that. And now it's a gimmick on multiple shows that Britt brings a sandbag to the ring with her. Fucking great. Plus, that there's going to be heat between the former champ and the current champ. And that just makes for another possible match down the line where it's a fucking sandbag match. Let's drop sandbags on each other. Something funny. I don't care.
They took something.
Also, keep Marina Shafir on dark because that's where she should be.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, yeah, first of all, number one rule of wrestling is make money off of it. Something's going on, make money off of it. Like you don't actually ever have real heat or real grudges against anyone if you can make money off of each other. That's just, then, when the money dries up, then you can go back to whatever.
Right.
But, but oh God, I have to say, I think they're doing the right thing with Marina, and she's getting a lot of reps on dark, and she's working with Nyla Rose, and it's sort of helping her, I think, but she's just really fucking clumsy in her kicks and everything she does. And she's trying a new submission hold that she's trying to get clever with, but it's clunky. And like I saw one clip of her today. She won on dark where her thing now is it's like, so she wraps your leg in your head with her legs or something and pulls an arm bar or something. It looks a lot better, but like she did a thing where she catches a kick and then she's supposed to like roll backwards, like as if sometimes you can roll back into a front face lock or something on the ground. She rolls backwards and then like locks her legs in. But what she did was she caught the leg, threw a gut punch that actually sent the person to the ground.
Of course,
fucked up the whole spot.
Yeah, which is what she's done a lot of times. Like, and it's good that she hits hard. I like that she doesn't completely pull her punches. Like they don't look like worked punches because half of them aren't. But they're not full potatoes either. Like she's doing it in a wrestling kind of way, but they're just super, super like Vinny Massaro level stiff stuff, which is great. It's like Japanese stiff. The problem is she's trying to do a new style. It would be great for something like Bloodsport, except there are maybe only 2 other female wrestlers that can even do that. Thunder Rosa is actually one of them that could do some of that, but a whole match of it is difficult. Like, you could do it with your homegirl Shayna Baszler, but Shayna's not in this promotion. Well, and the problem is there's nobody in AEW that is really the right person to help Marina hone in this hybrid looking style.
Yeah.
Like if she could get under Daniel Bryan's wing, maybe he could help her out a lot, or maybe even CM Punk. Like CM Punk did a good job of really bringing in some MMA stuff, but combining it with, regular Japanese and Lucha Libre style stuff, and then was forced to try to do it in the WWE, but it still worked. But he had a long time to perfect it, and he had Ring of Honor to perfect it in.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem is she needs some other people commiserate with her level that are also learning that she can try some stuff out with, but then she needs lots of practice time with them before shows. And I get what she's doing. And I think what she's doing could end up being great, representing kind of a shoot style. I love the blood sport kind of look. She's doing that, but it's got to turn into something that the partners can dance with. And that's the problem. Yep. You can't dance with Marina Shafir. You can either lead and just force her to give you a good wrestling match, or you can sit there and look like you're sandbagging because no one knows how to take her shit yet, because it doesn't exist. She's trying to invent new things. Kudos to her, but it's got to get dialed before anyone's going to buy it or it's going to look good.
Also, and this is something I said to you earlier today, she is an MMA fighter. She's had some success. She's not like a champion or something. I don't know, but she has some success in imposing her will on other people in competition. And so, like, as a wrestler, when she's trying to get her shit over, she should be able to make sure that her stuff looks good. If someone, and this is what top stars do or can do, is, if the other person isn't putting your stuff over right or properly, or for whatever reason, you can still protect your own authenticity, your own, in-ring kayfabe. And so, like in the Thunder Rosa match, everyone's like, oh, Thunder Rosa sandbagged her on the awkward suplex. Well, why isn't Marina strong enough to just throw her in the first place? That's who she's supposed to be. That's who she is outside the ring in competition, Right. Like, why did she have such a clumsy finish on Dark when she knocked the person down and then had to the other person wasn't cooperating with all the timing 100%? Why can't she just take control?
It's real simple math. No, but it's also simple math. You have to let the other person know when you're going to power them over, because they're doing half the work. Hate to break it to people, but suplexes don't happen from you just powering somebody over. And sometimes, and don't get me wrong, it's happened. It's happened a lot. But at the same time, the ones that look really good, the victim of the move pushes into the move at the right time.
Yeah,
you try to snap it off too soon. You don't fucking show that you're doing the move. You don't communicate and dance with your partner the right way. Yeah, you're going to pull them over like a lump of fucking coal. Like, it's not going to look good.
But you also have
to make each other look good.
Yeah, but you have a guy like Taz, right? Back in ECW. Taz always looked great. He always looked good. And on top of that, his suplexes, according to him, were always safe. And how he
you
did
want to know
was,
why? Go back and watch it. He stamps his foot first. Everyone knows when it's actually coming.
Yeah, but he controls the whole thing, and he's tweeted recently about it, because there'll be like a suplex that nearly kills someone in the ring, and he'll kind of give a little bit of a lecture, and he's like, because he was the suplex guy, so, and he was really good at it, and it was always going to look good, but he always wanted to be safe, so he always took 100% of it. You weren't going to have a Taz match and fuck up his suplexes and make it look bad and get hurt. So, like, why Shafir, with the stuff she's doing, she needs to be able to do both. She needs to do the same thing with what she's doing. She has to always assure that it's going to look good, and she's not going to hurt someone.
Right. And the reason why Taz got to lead so early in his career is because one or two guys, he told him, like, hey, let me lead the suplex spots. I know I got you. I got you covered. And then other performers saw those matches and they were like, oh, that shit looked really good. Sure, I'll go along with your thing. And the next thing you know, Taz is some up-and-coming guy who's only been on TV for a year, and he's leading every match he's in with guys who've been around 15 years. And of course they're fine with it, because he's making them look good. Yeah. He's making them look like they're getting beat up the right way. He's protecting them and they're not feeling shit. And, the crowd is going through the roof over it. Sure, you'll take a nasty Japanese style suplex that nobody was taking at the time from Taz because he's going to protect you. He's going to do it right. He's leading you into it. He's signaling it great. And he's a badass. The whole thing is working. The whole gimmick's working. I don't know. I just get, I do get irritated by it, but I don't necessarily blame Marina.
Yeah.
Like the system has to fix that. And part of the All Friends Wrestling issue is the fact that these guys built a company with people they already trusted.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're bringing in people that you don't necessarily trust, but you're not working them into the circle of trust. You're just expecting them to know how to get in there. And that's not the way it works, guys. Just because Marina's got a great gimmick and she's a fucking blue chipper and, she's put in some time, it doesn't matter. Everyone's got to trust what she does, not just who she is. Like, everyone likes Marina, and there's no heat with Marina backstage or anything. Nobody's mad at fucking Marina. There's no reason to be. But also, they got to find the way to get her the right time. And this is part of why she was put in with Thunder Rosa. That was part of it. But man, on national TV is a bad time to be learning that lesson. It hurt your champion because of it. Because it didn't work out great because, they needed to work on some things. And part of Marina's whole look just doesn't work right. And it's got nothing to do with anybody. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
So you got to workshop it a little bit. If you want to come up with a new and unique style, look, we've had these complaints about NXT too. Katie Catanzaro was trying to do the same shit. She was trying to be innovative and do some cool flippy shit, which was great and kind of needed in the women's divisions, but it failed a lot on national TV. And it was a bad look. And if you had done that with one of your champions, if you imagine like Alexa Bliss is holding a belt, and is already not huge and strong to control anybody, but then all of a sudden you send Katie Catanzaro in there doing crazy, weird, flippy shit, all you're going to do is make your champion look bad. That's not the way to do it. And good for Marina getting a shot against a fucking champ this early in her career in any promotion, like even being in there with anybody walking around with a belt, because she was not ready. Unless it was a pure squash, which it probably should have been. Another thing that they don't book enough of, but that's why I loved it when Ricky Starks did it this week. Like, book some more squashes. All your champions should be doing some squashes. I remember, even mid-level guys that you want to keep elevated. Like, how many people did I see Junkyard Dog squash?
Yeah.
Before he even had a belt, even Ravishing Rick Rude, like, his job was to come out, do the torso thing, have the cool tights, and squash the shit out of somebody for like 6 months of the year.
Mm-hmm.
They just protected him forever until it was time to do something with him. All of those guys, like Junkyard Dog, what he held the IC title for like a half a minute, Coco Beware, like all these dudes. They just went out and they were huge stars. They were name stars who were really just average mid-card wrestlers. And that's how you do that. And I don't understand why there isn't more of that. Get Johnny local security guard to come in and not, squash 50 of them to, your new TV champ, but let's just every fucking Wednesday, let's have a squash match.
Mm-hmm.
See if you can do that for a month, Tony, and see what the good it does for you, because it will. Let them cut the promo. They give them mic time. Like, let Thunder Rosa squash somebody and get on the mic for 30 seconds afterwards. Not even a long promo. That's the way to do it that they're not kind of doing. I don't have much to say about Rampage. It was really a Ring of Rampage show. It was supposed to be because of promoting Death Before Dishonor. I will say that I think Jay Lethal and Christopher Daniels did a go-home the right way. Like, it was a credible match. Nobody was getting hurt. They slowed things down a little bit. Like, let's not put out the guy that's going into the pay-per-view that we're trying to sell the pay-per-view on, but let's also show that he can fucking wrestle. He can work.
Yeah.
He's working with an older guy. Like, Christopher Daniels' back is not what it used to be, people. Like, he still looks young. Dude still looks like $1 million.
Yeah.
There's not $1 million underneath that look. We all know it, but it was fine. It was done exactly the right way. I hope that everyone at AEW takes a note of this, not the like, let's jump through the barricades in the go home show and hurt the fuck out of Phoenix. Let's
Phoenix,
not do these things. Yeah, let's not do
Phoenix
these things.
Is like, I'm gonna figure out how to fall from 15 feet the day before.
Oh my god! Like, yeah, I'm gonna try a new
Someone
flippy
catch
shit
me, I
spot
guess.
where there's like metal things involved and no padding and like people I don't work with normally that I don't trust. Let's do that, dumbass. And dumbasses in booking and agenting who let it happen. Anyway, the rap battle with Max Caster and Austin Gunn. Austin Gunn played that shit so perfectly. Like, he actually came out and rapped decently to begin with, and probably better than Max, and probably can rap better than Max. But, you know, sold the slow burn to like a total fail. Whoever the host guy was, I feel like he wasn't in on it, which was great. It worked. It felt kind of clumsy and awkward. Max did his thing the right way. It was fun. For a silly segment like this to keep that angle going. It was totally the right thing. And I like that they threw some real heat in there, like I said, and a lot of promos at AEW recently. They've just been like, let's just throw something that is very taboo that we shouldn't say in there. AEW should be the promotion to do that shit. Britt Baker, totally right in her promo of like, you guys needed me. Having her back, like doing her actual Britt Baker thing is great. I like the Matt Sydal, Lee, what's his fuck?
Lee Moriarty.
Stokely Hathaway thing, like, all great. Like, I'm glad that that's the kind of guy. Yes, Matt Sydal. Let's see him on TV for a couple episodes in a row and then not on TV for a while. Like, Matt deserves that. He's great. He's not the best promo in the world, but he serviced it well enough. And I think there's room for guys like that. And I'm glad he's got a spot because he's a phenomenal worker. I love his in-ring stuff. He's really earned it over the last few years. And this is a good use for him, and let him put over his boy.
And he's also just a great he's I think going beyond this in the value that he brings to the company, but he's a great sort of hybrid coach talent like Christian is for the people that he's working with. Yeah. You know, so they put him with a high flyer who, you know, came to the company like a kid from New York. And next thing you know, like, Moxley is taking bumps for him. I'm sorry, it's almost hour 3. I'm forgetting names, but
you forgot the champion's name just because he's interim? That's rude.
Not Moxley. I keep thinking of his Twitter name. It's like Lucha Angel or something, which is dumb. He's got to get his Twitter name right.
I don't even know who you're talking about at this point.
The guy who's tagging with Sydal. That's not his brother. Top Flight.
Dante.
Dante Martin. So like, he's great, but like, he's super over now as an individual.
All you had to say was the other guy in the match. I mean, I knew it was Lee versus Dante. Yeah, Dante's great.
My brain. I just spent all day editing, working on footage that is probably going to be trashed.
I can't even tell you what I had to deal with today. I had to deal with insurance. Being the boss sucks. Like, all my producers were getting to write fun stuff, and I had to deal with insurance and copyright.
At least you're doing your job. My whole act that I'm working on right now, there's 2 cameras, the 2 main A and B cameras out of like A, B, C, D, whatever, F. A and B never made it to a hard drive.
That's not good for a scene.
I don't have any scene that has coverage.
Just get creative.
I was told, hey, use this bit as an act out. It's really funny. And I watched it. My camera, the only one I have that's still rolling, is on the floor in the hallway. And there's 2 cameras that were shooting it inside. I don't even have visual on my act out, let alone my scenes.
Byron, I have a question for you. Does it bother you as much as it bothers me when JR says Johnny Hungy? I want that to be okay, but for some reason when JR says it, I'm like, no, I don't like it now. Stop saying it.
I haven't even gotten that far with the things that JR says.
Look,
that bothers me.
I feel
What
I
about
don't
when he
know.
tweeted about Natty Neidhart's sister?
Good Lord.
If only she was
JR.
older. All right, JR. Settle
Good
down,
Lord,
dude.
JR. If you were the same age as her, you would not have a chance, my man. Especially not talking like that. Anyway. Oh my God. Look, Adam Page, I don't know what I get it. He's tagging with John Silver, and like it was mildly entertaining to kick off a show, and I guess he's just kind of in a holding pattern. But man, you know, there was some of the cowboy shit era that was lightning in a bottle, and you know, this happens in WWE too. You put a guy up at the top for a while, and then you have to move him back down to the mid card, and it's awkward because you want him to look like a superstar, but also like there's no room for him at the top for a minute. But I don't know what you do with Hangman. This ain't it.
Yeah.
There's some upside there. Maybe when Kenny's back, maybe I don't know. There's definitely some room for some things to happen. There's also only so much TV time. But man, when you see Adam Page kind of in there, and it's like, and it's no offense to John Silver too, but it looks like he got demoted. Maybe he should go hang out with Max DuPri and Gresham, you know, over at Jeff Hardy's house as they're waiting for an invite to Brock Lesnar's who didn't quit. I don't know. Anyway, Byron, guess what?
Yes. What?
I have something very important for you.
Oh my God. Is it food? I haven't had dinner yet.
I don't know if it's food, but I will say this.
What?
Until next time, stay calm and stay in the mix.